Chapter 10:10, Houston's Baleful Force. You have no right to govern what I do. And your junior of the human race purposely instigated this matter. He trespassed the depths of the Cross Mountains and killed an expert of my beast god continent. Do you really think that my beast god continent can be trampled on? Kaiser growled. His hand shot out once again and grabbed toward Chen's heart. The frozen space left Chen completely immobilized. Kaiser froze it with his abilities as a Saint Emperor, so it was not something that Chen could break free from. Houston's eyes shone with a light that had never appeared before. In that moment, his eyes were like torches that were sharp and dazzling as the sun. Two beams of light seemed to shoot from his eyes, which caused the space in front of him to twist. Suddenly, a great presence erupted from his body. It shot into the sky and caused the air and clouds to churn. A black mist began to emerge from Houston's body. It blotted out the sky and suddenly plunged the bright world into darkness. It was so dark that the range of visibility was less than an arm's reach, while even the blazing sun had disappeared. This was darkness attributed Saint Force. The long, black spike in Houston's hand seemed to fuse perfectly with the pitch-black world. It shone with a barely visible light as it shot soundlessly toward Kaiser. The spike was unbelievably fast, which made it even harder to sense. A strike like this would definitely be difficult to block for an opponent with a similar strength to Houston. They would be heavily injured even if they avoided death, but it could not threaten Saint Emperors. A cold light flickered in Kaiser's eyes, as if darkness completely did not affect him. He stared fixedly at Houston as cold-killing intent permeated from him without any restraint. He snorted, "You overestimate yourself. Since you want to stop me time and time again, I'll eliminate you first." Kaiser could not help but stop his hand that targeted Chen's chest. Afterward, he clenched it tightly and struck out loudly. A terrifying energy immediately surged wildly from Kaiser's punch. It transformed into a dragon, as it struck the black spike with an unstoppable force. Houston's spike struck with the dragon condensed from energy. With a violent boom, Kaiser's attack blew the spike far away. Meanwhile, the dragon continued toward Houston with no reduction in force, as it seemed to roar. With the spike knocked backward, Houston produced a visible tremble. However, his face remained the same. He gently spoke, as he stared at the threatening dragon, "Shadow escape." He suddenly disappeared with these two words. It was not just his figure, as his presence had vanished as well. The dragon flew past Houston's previous location and struck a mountain behind him in the end. It produced a violent rumble, which caused the entire mountain to collapse loudly. Do you really think that I can't find you after you fused with your surroundings? It's just small tricks. Watch how I break through your domain of darkness, Kaiser sneered disdainfully. Then, he struck out with a simple punch at the dark sky. The power that coiled around the punch was enough to shake the sky. Bang! Kaiser's punch seemed to have landed on a drum. It produced a muffled sound and immediately, the world of darkness began to violently twist. The entire region greatly shook as rays of bright light pierced in from the outside world. In the blink of an eye, all the darkness disappeared completely from the region. The scorching sun illuminated the world once more. The light of the world had returned. Houston reappeared now that his secret technique had been broken through. He hovered 1,000 meters away with a pale face. Spurt. Suddenly, Houston vomited a mouthful of blood. His face became even paler, now without any trace of blood. Kaiser's strength was just too great. He was one of the most powerful people even among Saint Emperors. His attacks were straightforward, but it possessed the might to destroy the surroundings every time he struck out. No one could withstand his attacks unless they were Saint Emperors. Even Saint Kings at great perfection were not enough. Kaiser did not give Houston any time to catch his breath. He took a step and traversed the distance between them silently and arrived before Houston. He eyed Houston coldly, before he extended his hand in the form of a claw toward Houston's chest. He wanted to dig out Houston's heart as well. "It's not that simple if you want to kill me." Houston glared at him, as the darkness attributed Saint Force on him disappeared in that instant. A dense, blood-red mist erupted from him. It was as thick as sticky blood and enveloped Houston's entire body. He said deeply from within the mist, "This is the baleful force I have condensed after taking countless lives throughout my entire life. I originally thought that I would never use it again, but I never thought that I'd still be able to see its might one more time right before I pass away. Kaiser, enjoy. This is the baleful force of the Bloodsword Sect. What powerful baleful force." Kaiser's expression finally changed when he saw the dense red mist. His hand that reached toward Houston forcefully stopped in midair. He was no longer willing to extend his hand any further. He immediately began to retreat rapidly without any hesitation in an attempt to get as far from Houston as possible. However, it was already too late. All the baleful force around Houston condensed into a blood-red spike that shot toward Kaiser as a red streak of light. Kaiser became extremely stern as he faced the spike. He had not shown this level of sternness even when he had faced the Path Lord of Carnal Desires. The baleful force was a powerful energy that only existed within the Bloodsword Sect. It was condensed from the chi of slaughter and was tangible yet intangible. It specialized in harming the souls of people. It could not be blocked or parried, and there was no way to break through it. The only way out was to forcefully resist it. Kaiser was a Saint Emperor, but magical beasts were born with weaker souls than humans. They were nowhere as great as human souls. Meanwhile, Houston had condensed his baleful force throughout his life. It was so powerful that it could wipe out the souls of anyone at the same level as him, so even human Saint Emperors would suffer quite a lot before it, let alone magical beasts. Also, when baleful force injured a soul, it would become extremely difficult to heal. This injury would greatly affect any cultivation done in the future. Kaiser backpedaled consecutively as he moved extremely fast. He would travel several kilometers with every step, as he feared the baleful force very much. However, he was nowhere as fast as the baleful force, which allowed it to catch up very quickly and pierce through the center of his eyebrows. Arg! Kaiser cried out painfully. He no longer behaved as mightily as before. He clutched his head with both his hands in agony. The baleful force currently devoured his soul without mercy. It was far worse than the time he received the palm of severance from the Path Lord of Carnal Desires. Although the Path Lord of Carnal Desires had forced Kaiser into a horrible condition with his attacks in the battle outside the atmosphere, the attack would affect his soul, which triggered the desires and emotions hidden within his heart. On the other hand, the baleful force directly harmed his soul. The frozen space around Chen had shattered long ago as Kaiser fought with Houston, so Chen recovered his mobility. A sharp gleam of light immediately flickered through Chen's eyes when he saw Kaiser's behavior. The Saint artifact directly landed in his hand with a thought, and he removed the only strand of Emperor's power from inside. A devastating energy flooded the surrounding space with the power's appearance, which caused it to tremble non-stop. Chen carefully controlled the Emperor's power as it floated above his hand. He arrived before Kaiser in a flash and struck Kaiser's head resolutely. Chapter 10-11, Rui Jin Arrives. Chen carefully controlled the Emperor's power as it floated above his hand. He arrived before Kaiser in a flash and struck Kaiser's head resolutely. A gleam of light flashed through the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, who was standing to one side. He stared in interest at the drop of Emperor's power in Chen's hand, and his expression changed slightly. He cried out inside, "It's an Emperor's power. I never thought Chen would actually possess some Emperor's power. It's teeming with water-attributed energy, so it must have come from a Saint Emperor of the Sea Realm. The power is enough to threaten Saint Emperors. The baleful force has injured Kaiser's soul. From the looks of his expression, he's in so much pain that he would rather be off dead. He can't bother with what's going around him at all. I wonder if this Emperor's power can heavily injure him or not." The light inside the Path Lord's eyes immediately began to flicker as he thought up to there. A gleam of extremely hidden but sharp light flickered through his eyes from time to time. Houston had also noticed the Emperor's power in Chen's hand. When he saw that Chen was about to push it into Kaiser's head, his eyes immediately lit up. He felt a sliver of anticipation. He Yu, who was locked in combat with Lankuros, naturally discovered the Emperor's power in Jian Chen's hand. He could not help but sneer when he saw Jian Chen's actions. Bang! With the Emperor's power in hand, Jian Chen finally slapped it forcefully into the back of Kaiser's head. It produced a bang, and immediately, a terrifying ripple of residual energy burst out and flung Jian Chen far away. Jian Chen was thrown backward and only stabilized himself after he flew several thousand kilometers. His right hand that had carried the Emperor's power also began to tremble uncontrollably, while his complexion became extremely ugly. There was some disbelief present on his face as well. When he had stuck Kaiser's head just then, Jian Chen felt like he had struck a tough steel board. Not only did it fail to turn Kaiser's head into pieces as he had expected, it even failed to heavily injure him. The Emperor's power actually failed to pierce Kaiser's skull. All it has done is blow away his skin. Isn't his head just a little too tough? Jian Chen thought. He could feel that the Emperor's power had caused minimal damage to Kaiser. The toughness of Kaiser's body had far exceeded his expectation. I never thought that Kaiser's body would be so terrifying. He sure is worthy of being a species that borderlines dragons. If it were not for the fact that I had some advantage in soul attacks when I had fought him before, I probably would not have been his opponent, thought the Path Lord of Carnal Desires. He was also surprised, as he watched from afar. Arg! You impudent brat! To actually make a sneak attack on me. I'm ripping you into pieces today no matter what. Kaiser roared angrily. Although the Emperor's power did not threaten him at all, it reduced him to an even more horrible state. With Kaiser's level of pride, how could he endure being forced into such a state by a human junior that was both weaker than him in strength and status? It was basically a great humiliation to him. Suddenly, Kaiser's gaze became extremely terrifying. His face twisted viciously and became like a demon that had climbed out from hell. Just a glance at him was enough to make people shiver. Kaiser poured everything he had into suppressing the great pain in his soul, as he glared coldly at Jian Chen. He seemed to be tempted to devour Jian Chen alive. Suddenly, Kaiser disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived before Jian Chen. One of his hands had completely turned into a dragon claw, as he swung it mercilessly at Jian Chen's head. At the same time, he froze the space around Jian Chen once more. This limited Jian Chen's movements and prevented him from using the Saint artifact to block the attack. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed abruptly. Kaiser's claw constantly grew larger and closer in his eyes, but he was trapped and immobilized. He could only helplessly watch on, as it rapidly approached. Suddenly, the space to their side split open in this moment of life and death. A sword that radiated with a blinding golden light and a terrifying sword sheath suddenly materialized. Then, it shot toward Kaiser's claw with lightning speed. Clang! As the sword collided with the dragon claw, the sound of an earth-shaking metallic collision erupted. The sword was knocked away, but it also derailed Kaiser's claw. A tiny wound appeared on the claw and bright red blood began to flow from it. This was the blood of a Saint Emperor. Although it was only a tiny amount, it was incredibly eye-catching. Moreover, the terrifying amount of energy hidden inside could be clearly felt. Kaiser immediately became shocked when Rui Jin injured his claw, because it was the toughest part of his body. Even Saint Emperors would fail to injure his claws. It's a weapon that possesses origin energy. The sacred dragon sword. Kaiser muttered hoarsely as he stared at the shining sword. A space gate quickly formed. Rui Jin in golden armor stepped out with Hong Lian, who wore a crimson dress. Rui Jin made a gesture with his hand, and the sacred dragon sword flew over from afar as a streak of light. Then, it landed obediently in Rui Jin's hand. Rui Jin wielded the sword as he looked expressionlessly at Kaiser. He growled, "I never thought I'd see you, mutated earthworm, so soon. What, do you really want to go against me?" Kaiser stared viciously at Rui Jin and gnashed his teeth and said, "You again. It's actually you again who's messing with what I'm doing. You may be a king of the Dragon Clan, but the Dragon Clan no longer exists now." It's best if you don't get in my way, or I'll kill you as well, believe it or not. Mutated earthworm, do you really think that you can kill me? Rui Jin said with a deep voice. His face was extremely dark. The fact that a mere mutated earthworm dared to threaten him, a dragon king, made Rui Jin extremely furious. Kaiser no longer bothered to talk with Rui Jin. Instead, he turned to the Path Lord of Carnal Desires and called out, "Human Saint Emperor, it's about time." A gleam of light flickered through the Path Lord's eyes. He said nothing and directly took a step forward. He crossed more than 10 kilometers to arrive before Rui Jin. Rui Jin's face sank when he saw the Path Lord. He growled, "Human Saint Emperor, I never thought you'd actually be working that mutated earthworm to harm the genius of your race." "You talk too much," the Path Lord said indifferently. He grabbed at the empty space. The energy of the world began to condense quickly, which he used to strike Rui Jin. At the same time, he uttered gently, "Since you have a treasure that can protect you against my attacks of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, I'll abandon them and completely use the abilities of a Saint Emperor to fight you." Chapter 10-12. Hong Lian injured the sacred dragon's sword danced with his arms, as he wielded it. It immediately stabbed out toward the Path Lord of Carnal Desires with a terrifying presence, and the sword radiated brightly with golden light. Boom! The sword collided violently with the surging energy from the Path Lord of Carnal Desires in mid-air and immediately produced a deafening sound. Terrifying residual energy swept out, which caused the mountains below to collapse one after the other. The entire Cross Mountains turned into a mess, where a large number of weaker magical beasts died due to the collision between Rui Jin and the Path Lord's attacks. Their clash also shattered the frozen space around Chen. As soon as Chen regained his mobility, he had to face the residual energy. The energy knocked him away like a kite with a broken string. "Let's fight in outer space, or the life on this continent will suffer," the Path Lord said. With that, he shot into the sky and headed directly for outer space. Rui Jin turned to Hong Lian and growled, "The human Saint Emperor's attacks of 7 emotions and 6 desires target the soul. They can affect a person's mind unknowingly. You still haven't fully refined that protective bead, so only I can keep him busy. You stay here and protect Chen." Hong Lian nodded sternly. White flames radiated from her body and enveloped her completely. Immediately, the terrifying heat spread into the surroundings and caused the temperature to skyrocket. It reached a terrifying level very quickly, as if even the air was burning. Through the white flames, one could vaguely see that Hong Lian had already equipped the feather mail completely made out of plumage. It was a legacy treasure of her divine phoenix clan, the 9 refined godfire feather mail. The strengthening of origin energy had increased the defense of the treasure. It could withstand attacks from Saint Emperors and not suffer any damage. Hong Lian was only a Saint King at great perfection. It could be said that someone with this level of strength could not even flee before a Saint Emperor. However, she could contend with Saint Emperors as she possessed the offensive and defensive treasures of her clan. Origin energy. "It's actually origin energy again," said Kaiser with his deep voice, as he stared at the Hong Lian wrapped in white flames in interest. The muscles on his face constantly twitched and twisted, perhaps due to the fact that he had to suppress the pain of his soul with everything he had. He seemed extremely vicious. Kaiser looked at Hong Lian as the light in his eyes flickered. He growled, "Little Phoenix, I won't make it hard for you considering that you're a magical beast as well. It's best if you don't interfere with my matters." With that, Kaiser tried to travel around Hong Lian in the form of a flash, as he attempted to chase Chen. However, the white flames around Hong Lian suddenly began to churn violently just as Kaiser passed by her. It turned into a huge white phoenix in that instant, which swallowed Kaiser in roaring flames. "Little Phoenix, don't blame me for not going easy on you since you have no idea what's good for you." Tyrant Dragon's Punch. Kaiser called out angrily from within the white flames. With a great boom, Kaiser destroyed the phoenix condensed from the white flames with a single punch. The phoenix immediately collapsed and turned into a cloud of fire in the sky. The terrifying temperature caused the space to twist. Hong Lian floated sternly in the sky. Her crimson hair danced in the wild wind. Suddenly, she opened her arms and cried out, "White cleansing flames, return." A mysterious force seemed to lead away the white flames after Kaiser scattered them with his punch. The flames gathered toward Hong Lian from all directions. Blazing the void, a refinement of flames. Hong Lian called out. She quickly compressed all the white flames in her surrounding into a fist-sized ball. Then, it exploded loudly and rapidly expanded in all directions. It formed a ball of flames 10 kilometers across in the end. White flames filled the entire ball. It was like a sea of flames, and it was so hot that it seemed to be able to scorch anything and everything. Kaiser stood proudly in the sea of flames. A powerful layer of energy had condensed around him to protect himself from the flames. Although the white fire was terrifying, it clearly posed no threat to Kaiser as a Saint Emperor. Hong Lian also appeared in the sea of flames. The crimson feather mail was eye-catching in the space of white flames. "Little Phoenix, you're not my opponent. If you're sensible, then back off quickly," Kaiser said coldly as he eyed Hong Lian. The origin energy feather mail protected her, so he could not harm her at all. As a result, Kaiser did not want to bother with Hong Lian anymore. "The refinement of flames may not be able to harm you, but it can exhaust your energy unceasingly," Hong Lian said calmly. She slowly raised her hand as a flame-red hairpin appeared bit by bit. Immediately, a mysterious and powerful energy began to radiate from it. Origin energy again. God damn it, why do you people all have so many items with origin energy? Kaiser's expression changed slightly. Swish. The hairpin in Hong Lian's hand shot toward Kaiser as a flash. Kaiser bellowed out, and his right hand became a powerful dragon's claw in that moment. He swung it toward the hairpin. Ding! With a metallic ring, Kaiser's claw actually knocked the hairpin away, while he remained unscathed. Kaiser's eyes lit up. He thought, this item with origin energy is far weaker than the sacred dragon sword of the dragon clan. Excitement sprouted within Kaiser. His fear of Hong Lian had already decreased significantly. He charged toward Hong Lian, as his right hand swept toward her in the form of a dragon's claw. Hong Lian could not dodge the attack at all with her strength as a saint king at great perfection, so the claw struck her feather mail heavily. The feather mail sustained no damage, but a powerful force traveled through its defense and entered Hong Lian's body. Spurt. Hong Lian paled, and a mouthful of blood sprayed out. The blow knocked her entire body backward. "Ha ha 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 ha, I never thought that your legacy treasure would be far weaker than the two others. I'd like to see how you fight against me now," said Kaiser, as he laughed aloud. Hong Lian became even sterner. She had just obtained the feather mail, and as time was too tight, she had failed to completely refine the defensive treasure before she hurried over. This prevented her from using the maximum power of the two treasures. Chapter 10:13, Strength that Surpasses Saint Emperor. 1. Hong Lian gritted her teeth when she heard Kaiser's arrogant words. Her eyes became filled with determination. Chen was a stranger to her, but she needed to protect him no matter what. She needed to this in order to see her clansmen that had disappeared. She was even willing to accept an outcome of being heavily injured. The scorching godfire hairpin that Kaiser had knocked away returned to her hand under her control. Her hands constantly danced about before her. She formed complicated hand seals one after another in a blur. At the same time, she called out, "Flaming Comet." The hairpin immediately burst into roaring flames, and it rapidly expanded from its original size of a palm's width. It became 10 meters long in the blink of an eye, as the flames roared on its surface. Whoosh! The huge hairpin transformed into a streak of red light, as it flew toward Kaiser with terrifying ripples of energy. Its speed was unbelievable. "Little Phoenix, you're not my opponent. Do not take other people's kindness for granted," Kaiser called out. Suddenly, his right arm struck out again in the form of a dragon's claw, and he knocked away the hairpin once more. Afterward, he no longer bothered with Hong Lian and went straight for Chen. Chen had already disappeared from his field of vision and was now very far away from the Cross Mountains. He rapidly drew closer to Mercenary City, yet Kaiser could still precisely sense his location. He thought, I can't let Chen reach Mercenary City no matter what, or it'll be troublesome. Your opponent is me. If you want to deal with Chen, get through me first. Lian said coldly. She controlled the hairpin to attack Kaiser time and time again in order to obstruct him. Although the hairpin possessed origin energy, Lian had yet to refine it completely. As such, she could not use all of its power. This was why she could not pose too great of a threat to Kaiser and was only able to keep him busy and prevent him from reaching Chen. Intense fury surged inside Kaiser after Lian blocked him time after time. He called out, since you have no idea what would be most beneficial for you, let me wipe out your soul first. Tremendous energy coiled around Kaiser's claw, and he directly knocked the hairpin away with a single strike. Afterward, he reappeared several thousand meters away in front of Lian with a slight movement and viciously clawed toward her chest. Screech. As his sharp claws scraped across feathermail, an ear-piercing sound rang out. Although his attack could not destroy the armor, Lian could not resist the attack, as she had not fully refined the feathermail. A great force immediately passed through the feathermail's defense and into Lian. Spurt. Lian vomited another mouthful of blood and Kaiser dispersed the roaring flames around her. Killing intent flooded Kaiser's eyes, and he chased up to Lian. He formed a fist with his claws and bellowed, Tyrant Dragon's Punch. Bang! Kaiser's devastating fist landed on Lian, which immediately caused her to vomit blood yet again. Her face paled, while her feathermail almost fell off her body. Tyrant Dragon's Punch. Tyrant Dragon's Punch. Tyrant Dragon's Punch. Kaiser pursued Lian, as he rained her with attacks. 8 punches landed on Lian, and the power was so great that even the sky shook. After Kaiser struck her with a rain of fierce attacks, Lian's became presence extremely weak. Her eyes were now closed, and she was now taking her last gasps of air. She seemed to be almost dead. However, at this moment, a crimson flame shot out from within Lian and enveloped her body completely as it blazed. A clear phoenix's cry rang out from within the flames as they constantly churned. The image of a divine phoenix with its head up, as it called at the sky, appeared behind. It seemed extraordinary. This is the innate ability of the divine phoenix clan. Rebirth of fire. Kaiser became ugly when he saw this. The reason he was unwilling to deal with Lian before was because of this innate ability present within the members of the Divine Phoenix clan. They could immediately return to their peak condition through a baptism of flames when they died, which made them extremely hard to kill and almost immortal. The crimson flames dispersed very quickly and revealed the elegant Lian. A tremendous presence radiated from her, and it was much more powerful than before. All of Lian's injuries had been healed after she underwent rebirth. She had returned to her peak condition, and her strength had even increased. The innate ability of the divine phoenixes could be used a total of 9 times. The user would grow stronger after each use, and after all 9 times, their strength would have increased by several folds. However, the increase was only temporary, so it was impossible to stay like that permanently. You can't kill me, said Lian calmly, as she nonchalantly looked at Kaiser. A sharp light flickered in Kaiser's eyes. He sneered, if you were a Class 9 Phoenix, even one that has just broken through to Class 9, would not be your opponent with your innate ability. But it's a pity that you're only Class 8. You're not my opponent even if you undergo the 9th rebirth. With that, Kaiser charged toward Lian. He struck out as hard as he could and heavily injured her once again and made her undergo a 2nd rebirth. I'll kill you every time you rebirth, said Kaiser with gnashed teeth. He killed Lian once more with his strength as a Saint Emperor. Lian's gaze remained extremely calm throughout. Her strength would increase a little with every rebirth. Soon, she had entered the 3rd rebirth. Suddenly, an uncomfortable thought appeared in Kaiser when he noticed Lian's calm gaze. He thought, it said that the rebirth of the Divine Phoenix clan can be used 9 times. Will she be dead after those 9 times or what? I can't mess with you any longer, thought Kaiser, as a light flickered through his eyes. He made up his mind. He struck out a few times with full power to heavily injure Hong Lian, who had rebirthed 3 times. Then, he no longer stayed put. He fused with the surrounding space and turned into a blur as he traveled in the direction that Chen had disappeared off to. He vanished in the blink of an eye. Hong Lian was still undergoing the process of her 4th rebirth, so she could not obstruct him at all. She could no longer see Kaiser after she had completed the process. Hong Lian's expression changed slightly and without any hesitation, she turned into a red streak of light in pursuit. Houston currently carried Chen. Houston was a Saint King at great perfection, so his comprehension of the laws of space was far beyond Chen's. As a result, he moved extremely quickly and covered several tens of thousand kilometers with Chen in that short amount of time. They grew nearer and nearer to Mercenary City. Chen, you can't escape, Kaiser roared out angrily from behind. He was catching up with a speed several times faster than Houston. Crap. Houston's expression changed and darkness attributed Saint force poured out from his body. His speed immediately skyrocketed, as he traveled with a secret technique. However, he was still slower than Kaiser. Kaiser caught up very soon, and he directly stabbed his claws at Chen's back. However, a white streak of light shot over with unbelievable speed at this very moment. It shot past Chen's side and struck Kaiser's claws with great precision. Arg! Immediately, Kaiser shrieked out. His claws that were strong enough to repel the sacred dragon's sword was as weak as tofu before the streak of white light. It shot through his claws and bore a hole. Origin energy. It's actually origin energy. This is strength that surpasses Saint Emperor. Kaiser became absolutely terrified. Chapter 1014, Strength that surpasses Saint Emperor, 2, Origin energy. It's actually origin energy. This is strength that surpasses Saint Emperor. Kaiser became absolutely terrified. He felt life-threatening danger for the first time in quite a while from that ordinary-looking streak of white light. Kaiser no longer bothered with Chen, who was only inches away. He also seemed to forget the intense pain from his arm. He looked in the direction where the white light had shot over with an extremely stern expression. Dread filled his eyes. Although he was so powerful that he even placed among the strongest within Saint Emperors, Kaiser knew that he was no stronger than a kid before an expert that had surpassed Saint Emperor. This was because they would be an expert of a completely different realm. The power they used would not be the Saint force that ordinary people used, but the origin energy that was on a higher level. May I ask which expert is attacking me from the shadows? Can you please show yourself, growled Kaiser. He suppressed the shock within him and looked around cautiously. At the same time, a layer of ink-black scales appeared on his body. It covered every inch of his skin, and even his body began to bulge at a visible rate. He very quickly became a 10-meter-tall monster. He maintained a human head, but his limbs had already turned into sharp claws, while 13 jagged spikes protruded from his back. Each spike was around 3 meters in length and they glistened with cold light. Kaiser had become half human, half dragon. This was his most powerful state. Chen and Houston both forgot to flee. They hung in the air in shock as Kaiser's words, "Surpasses Saint Emperor," constantly boomed through their heads. Their hearts churned, and they were no longer able to stay calm. Bad. You're a bad person. You bullied Shaoling's big brother, making him like this. Shaoling will definitely teach you a solid lesson for Big Brother. At this moment, an immature girl's voice suddenly rang out. A white-dressed girl with 2 pigtails, who seemed like she was 11 or 12 years old, silently appeared beside Chen. She faced Kaiser angrily. This was the first time Shaoling had appeared without hiding herself, so Kaiser and Houston immediately noticed her. However, they both became stunned at the same time when they noticed it was such a young girl, but they returned to their senses very quickly. Deep shock and disbelief immediately flooded their hearts, as they did not sense when she had appeared even with their strength. Shaoling, it's you. You've actually left Mercenary City. Chen stared at Shaoling in surprise. He immediately understood she was the expert that had surpassed Saint Emperor and had attacked Kaiser earlier. Xiaoling's anger immediately subsided substantially when she heard Jian Chen's voice. She turned around and looked at him in concern. Big brother, Xiaoling can't just watch you being bullied by this big bad person. If Xiaoling did nothing, that big bad person would have killed big brother. Master forbid Xiaoling from leaving the city all those years ago, but to save big brother, Xiaoling will stop caring for master. Kaiser heard every single word from Xiaoling. A gleam of light immediately flashed across his eyes, and he looked toward her in doubt. He cried out, "Are you the barrier spirit of Mercenary City? I never thought that the barrier spirit would leave the protective barrier." Looks like the rumors aren't completely true, Houston also cried out when he saw the childlike Xiaoling. In truth, Xiaoling was a spirit that the earth gave birth to. She was not some spirit of the barrier. She could just control the power of the barrier in Mercenary City. Years ago, the city lord Mo Tianyun had tasked her with protecting and suppressing the seal underneath the city, so she had never left there even after so many years. This was why people misjudged her as a spirit that was born from the barrier. They assumed that she was connected to the barrier and could never leave Mercenary City. Xiaoling's expression changed when she heard Kaiser's voice. She glared at Kaiser with her naive eyes and said angrily, "You bad person. You just bullied Big Brother. Xiaoling will teach you a good lesson for Big Brother." As she spoke, Xiaoling casually swung her hand and a streak of white light suddenly appeared. It shot toward Kaiser with lightning speed. This was the origin energy that only those who had surpassed Saint Emperor could control. It did not have any earth-shaking presence or aura when it shot from Xiaoling's hands, nor did it have any terrifying ripples of energy. Only a mysterious and profound presence circulated within it. Origin energy was a completely new power. It surpassed the understandings of the people from the Tian Yuan continent. They could not sense its power and terror from how it looked like. Although it was only a careless wave of her hand, the attack from Xiaoling made Kaiser feel like he could not avoid it no matter what action he took. As such, he forcefully received the attack head-on. Kaiser's powerful body became as weak as tofu before the origin energy. The origin energy directly disintegrated his scales upon contact and turned him into a bloody mess. Arg! Kaiser shrieked in agony. The injury from the origin energy was nowhere as simple as it seemed. The pain was so great that even a Saint Emperor like him could not bear with. "Is this origin energy?" thought Jian Chen as curiosity flooded his eyes. He had watched the white light strike Kaiser. He could clearly feel a mysterious yet profound presence from it. There's clearly some difference between the origin energy from Xiaoling and the weapons and armor with Rui Jin and the others. I can feel that Xiaoling's origin energy is most pure, without any impurities. Meanwhile, the origin energy on Rui Jin and the others' items also possess a great power that originates from this world, Jian Chen thought. Origin energy. This is origin energy. What pure origin energy. At the same time, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, Lankuros, Heiyu, and Rui Jin also sensed the appearance of the power. They immediately became shocked and stopped fighting. Then, they shot toward Xiaoling's location like lightning bolts. Chapter 10:15. The seal loosens. Kaiser painfully clutched the wound on him in half-human, half-dragon form. He could feel the flesh around the area that the origin energy struck disappear at a visible rate, which caused the wound to rapidly enlarge. The agonizing pain tortured his nerves time and time again and caused all his muscles to convulse. The origin energy seemed simple and possessed no earth-shaking presence, but its power was indescribably terrifying. The energy seemed to be able to eat away everything once struck, able to turn everything to dust. Jian Chen and Houston stared blankly as the wound rapidly increased in size. Their hearts churned, as they witnessed the power of the origin energy. They had never imagined that a powerful Saint Emperor would be so weak before origin energy. Arg! Suddenly, Kaiser roared out angrily. A tremendous energy surged out unceasingly from his body like a flood. In this moment, Kaiser was using everything he had to stop the residual origin energy within him. He wanted to nullify it. The disturbance from a Saint Emperor using everything they had would be doubtlessly earth-shaking. Before the supreme power, all the space in a radius of several hundred meters began to twist constantly as black spatial cracks formed everywhere. Moreover, the ground below Kaiser rapidly sank. The powerful energy forcefully pressed it down. The surroundings were dark. Kaiser's power was enough to cause the world to lose its color, while the energy of the world and world force in the surrounding hundreds of kilometers was affected as well. It became violent, no longer as peaceful as its normal state. All the experts of protector clans in their independent spaces scattered across the continent stepped out. They sternly looked in the direction of Kaiser. The eyes of the person with the greatest seniority of the Zhu branch in the Changyang clan, Changyang Zhu Shao, lit up and glowed like torches. He fixedly gazed into the distance and growled, "Only Saint Emperors can cause such a vast disturbance. The Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent have trespassed our continent once again. Saint Emperors are now invincible existences in the world. Even with the two continents in perspective, there are only 4 Saint Emperors, yet the magical beast Saint Emperor clearly is using his full strength to make such a disturbance. That's weird. Who's so powerful that forced the Saint Emperor into such a state?" said a great elder in thought from beside Changyang Zhu Shao. Shock filled his face. The Saint Emperor of the magical beasts must have come to the Tian Yuan continent for the winged tiger god. The winged tiger god is with Jian Chen, while Jian Chen has the protection from the 2 experts with the origin energy items. Have they begun fighting with the Saint Emperor? It doesn't matter what's happening. Since they've begun fighting on our Tian Yuan continent, we can't just stand by. "Let's go see first," Changyang Qing Yun said with a deep voice. Afterward, he casually waved his hand, and the space before him immediately ripped open. He wanted to construct a space gate. However, the ripped space trembled violently, before it slowly closed up once more. He had failed to create a space gate. Changyang Qing Yun furrowed his brows. Their fight is too intense. It has broken the balance of space. I actually can't construct a space gate. Let's designate a space gate several tens of thousands of kilometers away from them since we can't set up one right there. We'll fly over afterward, suggested a great elder. Afterward, the great elders all left through the new space gate. They did exactly as one of them suggested and arrived a distance from Jian Chen's location. Then, they flew over. At the same time, the 9 other protector clans, a few ancestors of ancient clans, and some saint kings of various other organizations hurried in the direction that the battle had erupted. Kaiser raised all the energy within him to contend against the origin energy, but he could not stop its havoc. In the end, his wounds only stopped worsening after the origin energy was completely consumed, as it did not have a constant force. Currently, Kaiser's face was moist with sweat, and he was in a horrible shape. He was no longer as awe-inspiring as before. A half-meter wide hole stood out like a sore thumb in his 10-meter-tall, dragon-like body. It was chilling. For tremendous presences flew over like streaks of lightning from afar. Simultaneously, Yu, Rui Jin, Lian, and the Tiger Emperor arrived from the same direction. The Tiger Emperor stood beside Kaiser while Yu, Rui Jin, and Lian immediately stood before Jian Chen. They all stared at the hole in Kaiser's body with shock. I felt a pure origin energy before. Kaiser, who made you injured like this? Lankyros growled. Still badly shaken, Kaiser stared at Xiaoling and said, "It's that girl. I never thought that she's actually the barrier spirit of Mercenary City." What? She's the barrier spirit of Mercenary City. Lankyros cried out uncontrollably in his surprise, and he immediately looked toward Xiaoling. Lankyros immediately became intrigued when he discovered that Xiaoling only seemed to be a young girl. He had only read about the barrier spirit of Mercenary City in some ancient record stored within the Beast God Hall, which previous magical beasts left behind. This was the first time the barrier spirit revealed its true form. He just never thought that the barrier spirit would be a young girl. Didn't the record say that the barrier spirit cannot leave Mercenary City? How has she left Mercenary City right now? Lankiros cried out with his deep voice. Doubt filled him. Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian all stared unblinkingly at Xiaoling. They all felt shocked when they thought about the purity of the origin energy that had come from the small girl. They all knew that only those beyond Saint Emperor could control this power. The young girl before them had actually surpassed Saint Emperor. Xiaoling paid no attention to everyone's shocked gazes. She stared angrily at Lankiros and Kaiser. You both bullied Big Brother. You're all bad. Xiaoling must teach you a difficult lesson for Big Brother. Xiaoling swung her hand once more with that and shot 2 strands of origin energy toward them. The expressions of the 2 Saint Emperors changed drastically when they faced this seemingly ordinary origin energy. However, a feeling of being unable to dodge appeared in both their heads, as if the origin energy had locked tightly onto their presences. It was to the point where they would be struck no matter where they ran off to. Since I can't dodge it, I'll face it head-on. Similar thoughts flashed through their heads. They gritted their teeth and roared out at the same time. Terrifying ripples of energy began to surge from their bodies. Then, they struck the incoming origin energy as hard as they could. However, origin energy was not something that Saint Emperors could block. It passed through their attacks like a hot knife through butter, before it directly shot through their bodies. Arg! Both the Tiger King and Kaiser immediately shrieked out miserably. The origin energy caused wounds that began to expand rapidly at a visible rate as their flesh and blood disappeared bit by bit. Suddenly, Xiaoling at a distant region of space said angrily, do you really think that Xiaoling can't see you just because you're hiding? You're even worse than the 2 of them to actually work with them and harm Big Brother together. Xiaoling must teach you a hard lesson this time. It won't be as easy as the times before. With that, another strand of origin energy shot out from Xiaoling's hand, as it struck the empty space with lightning speed. Arg! Immediately, another miserable cry rang out. Suddenly, the Path Lord of Carnal Desires appeared, with a fist-sized hole on his chest. The origin energy had punched a hole through him and the wound constantly expanded. As long as your souls are uninjured, you won't die. Xiaoling will capture you all for Big Brother to deal with after Xiaoling has taught you all a lesson. Big Brother will be very happy, said Xiaoling, before she sent 3 more strands of origin force toward the 3 Saint Emperors. It added another hole to their bodies. Let's go. Lankiros roared angrily at Kaiser. A mist of blood sprayed out from his body, and when it dispersed, he had disappeared. With the Tiger King gone, Kaiser and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires also used fleeing techniques. They instantly disappeared after they paid quite a heavy price. Xiaoling stood with her hands on her hips, as she said unhappily, with me here, it doesn't matter where you run off to. Watch as Xiaoling captures you 3 bad people. Just as Xiaoling wanted to do something, Mercenary City violently trembled. The entire city that was several kilometers away shook violently, as if it was amidst some great earthquake. Huge cracks formed on the ground of the city. Xiaoling's naive, pure face changed abruptly. She cried out involuntarily, oh no, that's bad. A very, very scary expert is attacking the seal. Xiaoling no longer bothered with the fleeing trio and disappeared before she had even finished speaking. She had reappeared in the depths below Mercenary City. Hidden below Mercenary City was a huge seal. There were extremely few people who knew of its existence. For most of history, there was only Xiaoling, other than Mo Tianyun, who had cast down the seal all those years ago. Mo Tianyun had sealed the entry to the world of Forsaken Saints there. The single seal had prevented experts of that world from reaching the Tianyuan continent, which created so many years of peace of the continent. Chapter 10:16. A shocking expert and extremely special seal locked up the pathway between the world of Forsaken Saints and the Tianyuan continent. Streaks of arm-thick white lights formed the seal. The lights crisscrossed together and sat quietly in the ground like a spiderweb. It gave off an extremely profound presence. The seal was actually completely composed of origin energy. A huge, pitch-black pit existed beneath the seal. It was several thousands of meters across and completely black inside. Nothing could be seen. It was like the gates of hell and gave people a spooky, hair-raising feeling. At this moment, the space within the pit began to violently distort. A strand of extremely powerful sword chi broke through the layers of darkness and appeared. It struck the seal with lightning speed. Boom! The seal immediately violently shook after the huge sword chi struck it. Powerful ripples of residual energy shook up the underground, and even affected Mercenary City above. The entire city wildly quaked and shocked countless people inside it. The sword chi teemed with pure origin energy. It did not disperse immediately after it collided with the seal. Instead, it charged onward at the web-like seal like an enraged bull. It caused the seal to stretch into a cone shape. Sob, the layer of the seal master set down all those years ago has broken now. Only this layer remains. Sob, it's all Shaoling's fault. It's all because Shaoling didn't listen to Master's orders and left Mercenary City. Otherwise, the layer wouldn't have been broken. Shaoling sobbed, as she appeared before the stretched seal. She was like a child who had done something wrong right now. Worry, fear, and deep regret filled her. The seal over there has been broken. This seal can't break no matter what, or the city Master built after so much effort will be gone. If the city is gone, Master will definitely be angry, Shaoling mumbled to herself, as she choked back her tears. She gently pressed against the remaining seal. In that moment, the vast energy gathered below Mercenary City began to surge quickly and flowed unceasingly toward the seal like the violent tide. In the end, the seal consumed it all. The seal immediately began to glow with a bright light after it absorbed the vast energy, which allowed it to constantly strengthen. Break! At the same time, a wispy voice rang out from the dark pit below the seal. It was impossible to tell whether it was male or female. The voice seemed to be filled with charm, as it resounded from beneath the ground. The sword chi stuck to the seal immediately exploded with a dazzling light. Strands of sword chi powerful enough to shake the world erupted from within and attacked the seal even more violently than before. It resisted the reinforced seal and actually became stuck in a stalemate. Oof, what a powerful person. Shaoling could not help but call out. A sliver of worry flooded her face and strands of pure origin energy began to surge out from her body. It poured into seal unceasingly to repel the terrifying sword chi. The seal finally broke the stalemate and suppressed the sword chi with Shaoling's support of origin energy. It slowly receded to its previous location. Seal breaker. The wispy voice rang out in the pitch-black hole once more, and a 1.2-meter-long sword chi shot through the darkness with an earth-shaking presence. It struck the web-like seal with lightning speed. The collision of the sword and the seal did not produce a great sound as expected. It gave people the illusion that it was weaker than it seemed, as if the earth-shaking sword was only a hollow cover. However, the dazzling white light of the seal quickly began to darken in the next moment. The final obstacle that blocked the world of Forsaken Saints showed some signs of breaking. My God, oh no! What is this weird power? It actually possesses a great destructive effect on Master's seal, Shaoling cried out. She immediately became nervous, as she poured even more surging origin energy into the seal, which made it strengthen rapidly. At the same time, the energy gathered underneath Mercenary City began to surge toward the seal at an even faster rate. Shaoling had only gathered all this energy after so many years and normally used it to support the seal. Shaoling could no longer bother with the consumption of the energy with the current danger. The signs of breaking finally stabilized under Shaoling's full support. It began to recover as fast as it could while it resisted the mysterious experts from the pit. The sword chi and sword pushed at the seal for a while more. In the end, the sword chi completely dispersed as it ran out of energy, while the sword also turned around and disappeared back into the dark pit with a clear resonance. Shaoling immediately produced a sigh of relief when she saw that the expert of the world of Forsaken Saints had finally given up on breaking through the seal. Signs of exhaustion appeared on her face. It had only been less than 20 minutes, yet it was like a death battle with an expert of the same level for 3 days and 3 nights to Xiaoling. Xiaoling patted her chest and looked into the pit with some lingering fear. She mumbled, "So scary, so strong. The 2 attacks must have come from the same person. If I hadn't made it in time, Master's seal definitely would not have been able to resist a single attack from that person." Suddenly, the space in the pit twisted. One could vaguely see a figure inside the darkness. The blurry person possessed a presence that allowed them to look down on everything. Xiaoling possessed great strength, but her mind was no older than a child's after all. She immediately clutched her mouth when she saw that and involuntarily took a few steps back. She became rather timid. "This seal can't stop me. The day I complete my seal breaker will be the day where this seal will disappear, and that day isn't far away." A wispy voice rang out from the darkness. Although it was extremely cold and emotionless, it was filled with confidence. The figure slowly vanished with that. The ground below Mercenary City became peaceful once again. Xiaoling stared at the patch of darkness blankly, as if it was the gates of hell. A while later, she began to cry painfully, sob, "Master, where are you? Come back quick, Xiaoling is so scared." A majestic, snow-white divine hall stood silently in the snowy land of the Arctic. A person completely clad in silver-white armor currently sat in the center of a room filled with cold air. The only part of her visible were her closed eyes. At this moment, her eyes slowly opened. A cold voice filled with surprise echoed through the quiet room. What a shocking genius! Not only has he reached such a high level of cultivation in 800 years, but he has even created that special battle skill made for breaking seals. It looks like you'll be breaking through that seal soon. I've observed you for 800 years. I wonder how great your future achievements will be. I really do look forward to it. Sigh, what a group of pitiful people. Jian, Chen, Houston, Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian remained frozen on the spot. They struggled to calm down their surging emotions. Xiaoling had easily forced 3 great Saint Emperors to flee. They felt extremely shocked from seeing someone who had surpassed Saint Emperor for the first time. I had never thought that there would still be those who have surpassed Saint Emperor in the present world that lacks origin energy. Rui Jin sighed deeply a long while later. Although he had learned of the barrier spirit's existence when he went to Mercenary City the first time with Jian, Chen and Heiyu, the 2 of them had always believed that the barrier spirit was only a Saint Emperor at most. They had never thought that the barrier spirit was something that had surpassed Saint Emperor. The 2 of them knew that those who had surpassed Saint Emperor were invincible. Even in the ancient times, only 4 experts like this had appeared. Houston floated pale-faced next to Jian Chen for a very long time without saying anything. Xiaoling's voice that referred to Jian Chen as Big Brother constantly rang through his head. His heart had begun to churn long ago. He had never thought that Jian Chen was so close to the barrier spirit of Mercenary City, an existence that had surpassed Saint Emperor. Jian Chen calmed down soon. He looked in the direction of Mercenary City and said, "Since Xiaoling wanted to capture the Path Lord, the Tiger King, and Kaiser, but she left with such urgency, has something great happened in Mercenary City?" Rui Jin thought for a while with that before he said, "Why don't we go to Mercenary City and check it out?" Though after the disturbance from that earthworm, the violent energy has flooded everywhere. The space still has not stabilized yet, so we can't construct a space gate. Let's fly over. With that, Rui Jin carried Jian Chen as he flew. Rui Jin made his way to Mercenary City with Hong Lian, Heiyu, Houston, and the others. The experts of the 10 protector clans and various other Saint Kings from across the continent arrived where the 3 Saint Emperors had fought Xiaoling soon after they had left. All they discovered was the mess of a place that the region had become. "I can feel a mystery's energy here, very similar to the origin energy on the weapons of the 2 magical beast experts," said Changyang Qingyun. "That doesn't seem right. I can feel that the residual origin energy here is much purer than the origin energy in the weapons of the 2 magical beasts," said the pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion, Wu Chenzi. However, a gleam of light flickered through her eyes. Then, she looked toward Mercenary City and said, "They've already flown off to Mercenary City, though we can follow along and see." The Saint Kings from the Protector clans and various other organizations continued toward Mercenary City. Mercenary City had already been thrown into a mess. The violent shaking earlier had alarmed everyone there, and people currently filled the streets. All of them pointed at the densely packed cracks on the ground as noisy discussions flooded their ears. All the people that had come to Mercenary City knew about the protective power over the city. The ground was countless times harder than steel, where even saint rulers could not leave a mark if they struck out as hard as they could. They could not believe that such thick cracks now covered the ground. A group of people of various ages currently floated sternly in the air in the center of the city, as they surveilled the entire city with Jian at their lead. Each and every one of them possessed extremely ugly expressions. Chapter 10:17. Deep underground. The ones who floated above Mercenary City were members of the upper echelon of Mercenary City. They were all elders, and even the weakest of them was a saint ruler. Grand Elder, just what has happened? Our city has the protective power of the barrier, and it's extremely tough. How has it ended up like this now? Has the barrier of our city disappeared? All the elders fell into a discussion, as they stared at the city riddled with huge cracks. They felt extremely suspicious and curious about the incident that Mercenary City had suffered, as well as some panic and confusion at the same time. The Grand Elder sternly stared at the huge cracks that covered all the streets and alleys. He too felt confused, unsure what exactly that had happened to Mercenary City and why it was like this now. Suddenly, Jian seemed to think of something. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he thought, has something happened to the barrier spirit? His face immediately darkened slightly when he thought of that possibility. Tianyun left the barrier spirit behind here all those years ago. Its existence was extremely important to Mercenary City, as it was the unnamed protector god of Mercenary City. If something really happened to the barrier spirit, it would definitely be an extremely heavy hit to Mercenary City. It's a pity that I can't communicate with the barrier spirit on my own initiative. I wonder what has happened to Mercenary City. If only Chen was here. Though a great battle has just erupted in the direction of the Cross Mountains. There were magical beast saint emperors who took part in it, so by the looks of things, the two magical beast experts by Chen's side probably fought the saint emperors of the beast god continent once again. Chen should also be nearby if that's really the case, thought Jian. He had sensed the battle in the Cross Mountains earlier and wanted to go have a look. However, Mercenary City suddenly began to shake violently, so he had to stay behind. At this moment, several tremendous presences appeared outside and rapidly approached the city with lightning speed. Jian's gaze froze, and he quickly looked toward the direction of the presences. He could not help but smile. Chen really has come at the right time. I just happened to need him to communicate with the barrier spirit and see what just has happened to Mercenary City. Chen, Houston, Rui Jin, Yu, and Lian flew over from afar side by side. All of their gazes became mixed when they saw the huge barrier above the city. A sliver of respect appeared in Houston, Rui Jin, Lian, and Yu's eyes. It was the respect for the strong. They all knew that barrier spirit was the little girl who had surpassed Saint Emperor. Chen never went into detail about Xiao Ling's true identity. To him, it did not matter whether Xiao Ling was a spirit of the earth or a barrier spirit. It was no longer important. Looks like something big really has happened here now that all the people of Mercenary City are in a panic. Chen noticed the difference in Mercenary City from afar, and his brows immediately furrowed in worry. Very soon, Chen's group met up with the elders of Mercenary City. After a few greetings, they directly proceeded to the main topic. Senior Jian, may I ask just what has happened with Mercenary City? Why has it become like this? Chen asked, as he looked at the messy Mercenary City. We don't know either. You can only ask the barrier spirit if you want to learn just what has happened today. Chen, you have a close relationship with the barrier spirit. I hope you can communicate with the barrier spirit and ask what caused the incident with Mercenary City, Jian asked sternly. I'll try, replied Chen. A sliver of uneasiness appeared in his heart for some reason, because he thought about some secretive matters Mo Tianyun had told him before. Afterward, Chen softly called Xiao Ling's name a few times. However, he did not get any response this time. Chen felt even grimmer. Currently, he felt more and more certain his thoughts. He had already connected the unforeseen event of Mercenary City and Xiao Ling's loss of composure earlier to the seal beneath Mercenary City. Some problem must have happened to it. Senior Tian Jian, I am unable to help you this time, Chen said rather dejectedly. He furrowed his brows from worry. He felt deeply anxious about Xiao Ling's safety. Sigh, Tian Jian exhaled deeply. He raised his head to look at the huge barrier that was still present, and he too furrowed his brows tightly. Since Mo Tianyun founded Mercenary City, it had gone through the wind and the rain, but something like this had never happened before. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered for a while. He was hesitating over whether he should tell Tian Jian and the others about the seal, so that they could mentally prepare themselves. At this moment, an invisible force suddenly surrounded Jian Chen. Before Jian Chen could even react, it bound him tightly. Then, it pulled him downward with lightning speed. Jian Chen! Rui Jin cried out. He immediately turned into a blur in an attempt to grab Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen just fell too quickly. Even with Rui Jin's strength, he could not grab him. In that instant, an invisible force pulled Jian Chen to the ground. Then, he directly disappeared into the ground as everyone watched on in shock. It left behind no mark on the floor. The expressions of Rui Jin, Heiyu, Hong Lian, and Houston all changed when they saw that. They glanced at each other before they all descended as if they had a tacit understanding of each other. They wanted to blast open the ground to save Jian Chen. Please wait. Tian Jian obstructed them and said, There's no need to worry, everyone. Mercenary City is protected by the barrier spirit, so outsiders cannot harm Jian Chen in here at all. Since Jian Chen is close with the barrier spirit, I assume that it's extremely likely that it was the barrier spirit itself that pulled Jian Chen into the ground. Rui Jin, Heiyu, Hong Lian, and Houston immediately calmed down after they heard this. They returned to the skies, as they quietly waited for Jian Chen. The mysterious force caused Jian Chen to rapidly sink and the soil parted as he moved downward. As such, he did not become stained with any silt or mud at all. Jian Chen had already experienced this before. He knew that Xiao Ling was behind this, so he was extremely calm. He let the force surround his body and did not show any resistance. Very soon, Jian Chen arrived in the depths underground. It was completely dark, to the point that he could not even see before him. Even with Jian Chen's eyesight, he could see nothing. Jian Chen subconsciously expanded his presence, but he could only expand at less than 1,000 meters even with its current power. A mysterious power suppressed his presence. However, through the senses of his presence, Jian Chen could tell that he was in a huge space underground. The energy here has become much thinner than the last time I came here, Jian Chen thought in surprise. He could still remember clearly that when Xiao Ling had taken him here for the first time, the energy was so thick that it had almost become liquid. Only a few years had passed since then, yet the energy had already become this thin. It was being consumed at a shocking rate. At this moment, a ball of white light suddenly appeared in the pitch-black world. It illuminated everything. Xiao Ling. Jian Chen immediately cried out when he saw the ball of light. The ball of light was from Xiao Ling. Her body seemed extremely illusionary, as if she was a figure constructed from light. Xiao Ling was no longer as energetic as before. 2 clear streaks of tears ran down her cute, innocent face as fear clouded it completely. Something seemed to be frightening her. Jian Chen felt pained when he saw Xiao Ling like that. He asked in concern, Xiao Ling, what has happened to you? What has happened? Suddenly, Xiao Ling began to cry. She threw herself at Jian Chen's chest, as she cried loudly, hugging Jian Chen tightly. Don't cry, Xiao Ling, come on. Tell big brother what has happened. Jian Chen hugged Xiao Ling back, as he comforted her. Although Xiao Ling's body was formed from energy, the energy had basically corporealized. As such, there were almost no differences to hugging a person with flesh and blood, except for the fact that Xiaoling did not give off any heat. Big brother, big brother. Xiaoling is so scared. Xiaoling is so scared. Master, master, where are you? Come back quickly, Xiaoling really is so scared, Xiaoling sobbed in Jian Chen's bosom. She was quite frightened. Jian Chen felt sympathetic as he looked at Xiaoling's weeping expression. He comforted softly, don't be scared, Xiaoling isn't big brother here. Don't worry, big brother will protect you. Jian Chen comforted Xiaoling for a very long time before she finally calmed down. Afterward, he asked, Xiaoling, tell me honestly. Has something happened to the seal? Xiaoling dried her tears and nodded her head firmly. She said, yeah, big brother, something ran out from the SE dash. Xiaoling suddenly stopped and immediately covered her mouth with her hand. She said with a muffled voice, no, Xiaoling can't say it. Master said that Xiaoling can't say it to anyone. Jian Chen smiled and said, Xiaoling, big brother saw your master a few years ago. Your master told big brother about everything here. There's a seal deep beneath Mercenary City, which seals up the entrance to the world of Forsaken Saints. Is big brother right? Xiaoling unblinkingly stared at Jian Chen with her bright and innocent eyes, before nodding firmly twice. She had basically affirmed Jian Chen's words. Xiaoling, even your master has told everything to big brother. You shouldn't hide it from big brother any longer. Be good, tell big brother what has happened here, okay? Jian Chen said. Okay. But big brother isn't allowed to tell anyone else. Master didn't let me to tell anyone all those years ago, Xiaoling said seriously. Jian Chen nodded silently. Afterward, Xiaoling described everything that had happened to Jian Chen. She hid nothing. Jian Chen immediately revealed an extremely ugly expression when he learned that a peerless expert of the world of Forsaken Saints had been attacking the seal. Xiaoling, just how powerful is that expert from the world of Forsaken Saints who attacked the seal? Can you defeat him? Jian Chen asked nervously. At this moment, he was so uneasy that his heart was beating heavily. Xiaoling shook her head without any hesitation and said, Big brother, that person is very strong. Master previously set down 2 seals all those years ago, one on the other side and one here. That person used a single attack to break through Master's seal on the other side, and the seal here probably would have been broken as well if Xiaoling didn't use everything she had to support it. Not only did Xiaoling use up all the energy that she had accumulated over many years to keep up the seal, but she even consumed a lot of her power. Xiaoling definitely wouldn't be able to bear with it if that person comes and attacks a few more times. Chapter 10:18. The 3 levels of the origin realm. Xiaoling's words shocked Jian Chen. Xiaoling herself was a supreme expert who had surpassed Saint Emperor. She had to use her own strength, the seal Mo Tianyun left behind all those years ago, as well as the vast quantities of energy accumulated over countless years beneath Mercenary City to block the attack of the expert from the world of Forsaken Saints. So, just how terrifyingly powerful was this person's strength? Jian Chen immediately became filled with anxiety after learning what had happened to Mercenary City. He was almost certain that the person who had attacked the seal had surpassed Saint Emperor, which made Jian Chen feel extremely grim. The world of Forsaken Saints had already given birth to people who had surpassed Saint Emperor, and there must have been quite a few of them. There would also be quite a lot of Saint Emperors. On the other hand, within this world, the war god of the 100 races, Ergens, had already died in battle out of the 4 supreme champions. The strongest human, Mo Tianyun, had already disappeared with the winged tiger god, with only the sea goddess still alive. However, only her soul remained, so her strength was nowhere near her prime. Even with the 3 other great races in perspective, there were only a few Saint Emperors. How could they possibly repel the invasion of the terrifying world of Forsaken Saints with just this much? Xiaoling, if you were to face up against the person who attacked the seal, would you be able to beat him? Jian Chen stared fixedly at Xiaoling. There was only Xiaoling in the current world who possessed strength beyond Saint Emperor. Xiaoling shook her head without any hesitation and said, "Big brother, Xiaoling definitely can't defeat that person. Xiaoling assumes that person is at least at late returnance, or even at reciprocity." Returnance? Reciprocity? Jian Chen stared blankly when he heard these two unfamiliar words for the first time. He asked seriously, "Xiaoling, are the returnance and reciprocity you speak of realms beyond Saint Emperor?" "Yeah. These are all things that Master once told me. Master said that the Saint Rulers, Saint Kings, and Saint Emperors on the Tian Yuan continent are all part of sainthood, while the realm beyond that is the Origin realm. However, the Origin realm is split into 3 smaller realms, which are Receival, Returnance, and Reciprocity. Each smaller realm has another 3 levels," said Xiaoling, "so above Saint Emperors is the Origin realm." Jian Chen came to an understanding. Afterward, his face twitched, and he asked Xiaoling, "Xiaoling, what level of cultivation are you up to right now?" "Big brother, Xiaoling is only at early returnance right now." "Xiaoling can't defeat that person," Xiaoling said pitifully. She seemed like she had been wronged. Jian Chen was silent. With Xiaoling's explanations, he had gained an even clearer understanding toward the strength of the world of Forsaken Saints. Those who had surpassed Saint Emperor should be at Receival, while those who had even surpassed that should be at Returnance. Meanwhile, the person who attacked the seal was extremely likely to be at Reciprocity, which shocked him deeply. In the ancient times when Mo Tianyun had entered the world of Forsaken Saints all by himself, he killed over 20 people that had surpassed Saint Emperor, at Receival, and another 3 beyond that, at Returnance. According to his estimations, it was extremely likely that Mo Tianyun was at Returnance or Reciprocity. Yet now, Jian Chen felt extremely pressured as the world of Forsaken Saints had given birth to an expert as great as Mo Tianyun. After he bid Xiaoling farewell, Jian Chen heavy-heartedly returned to the surface. Tian Jian, Rui Jin, and the others remained floating high up in the sky. The various Saint Kings from the Protector clans and other organizations had gathered as well. Kaiser's presence had alarmed all of them and drawn them over. The group of elders behind Tian Jian had decreased substantially. Many of the elders at Saint Ruler had all been sent off to stabilize the situation of the city, as well as create a reason for the phenomenon. "Look, Jian Chen's back." They immediately discovered Jian Chen as soon as he appeared on the surface, and they all descended to his side. "Jian Chen, are you fine?" Rui Jin was the first one to speak. He was filled with concern. Although he had only met Jian Chen a while ago, Jian Chen was directly related to his chances of meeting his clansmen again. As a result, it could be said that Rui Jin and Hong Lian cared for Jian Chen's life the most after Tian Jian and Houston. "Jian Chen, what did the barrier spirit say to you? Did you understand why the phenomenon earlier had occurred?" Tian Jian asked impatiently. All the people from the 10 Protector clans were slightly startled by Tian Jian's questions. Their gazes toward Jian Chen immediately began to flicker with light. If Changyang Shangtian of the Changyang clan had some connection to the barrier spirit of Mercenary City, it would be an extremely bad piece of news to them. After some thought, the great elders of the Protector Changyang clan all began to smile slightly at the same time. Their gazes toward Jian Chen carried some pride. Jian Chen did not immediately answer Tian Jian. He hesitated with a sunken expression. He pondered whether he should tell them all about the matter or not. A while later, Jian Chen finally made up his mind. He said, "Senior Tian Jian, the matter is important, so can we find a place where we can talk alone?" Tian Jian also understood the severity of the matter when he saw Jian Chen's sternness. He did not dare to hesitate at all and immediately brought Jian Chen into an independent space within Mercenary City. Afterward, Jian Chen told Tian Jian everything about the world of Forsaken Saints and Xiaoling's situation over there, including when he met a fragment of Mo Tianyun's soul. He only hid the matter concerning the Yinyang Saint Rock. When Tian Jian learned about the world of Forsaken Saints from Jian Chen, he became stunned. He did not return to his senses even after a very long time. The existence of such a world shocked Tian Yuan, where he struggled to stay calm even with his mental fortitude. He was speechless. Only after an extremely long time did Tian Jian finally return to his senses. He sucked in a deep breath and slowly suppressed his shock. He stared at Chen with interest and asked him with a slightly trembling voice, Chen, is that all true? Is there really a tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints hidden beneath Mercenary City? The sudden trembling of Mercenary City was also because an expert from that world who has surpassed Saint Emperor was attacking the seal? I'm absolutely certain, Chen replied sternly. He had really wanted to continue to hide the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints. This was to prevent panic on the Tian Yuan continent after the new broke out. However, he could no longer afford to choose this course of action now that the matter had developed to such a state. Tianjian's complexion changed very quickly and it became extremely ugly. He said hoarsely, we need to tell the 10 protector clans about this immediately so that we can come up with a plan of counterattack. Chen, come with me as well. Tianjian left hurriedly with Chen. Tianjian immediately found the people of the protector clans and members of the other organizations after he left the independent space. Then, he sternly invited them to a meeting in Mercenary City. He even invited Rui Jin, Lian, Yu, and Houston. Houston and Lian did not follow along due to their injuries. Instead, the elders of Mercenary City gave them a place to recuperate. Only Rui Jin and Yu followed along. Several elders of Mercenary at St. King gathered with several dozen experts from the protector clans and other organizations in a majestic hall. Throughout the entire process, Tianjian maintained an extremely sunken expression. No one understood the reason for this other than Chen. They had no idea what had happened that would make the Grand Elder of Mercenary City behave like this. Tianjian cut right to the chase and told everyone present about the news regarding the world of Forsaken Saints that he had learned from Chen. He went into particularly great detail about their strength. All of them became dumbstruck after learning about the world of Forsaken Saints. Disbelief flooded their faces. The news from Tianjian was doubtlessly like a bolt from the blue, it stunned them all. Grand Elder, what did you say? There's a seal beneath Mercenary City that seals the entrance to another world? Grand Elder, is that true? Does the world of Forsaken Saints really exist? Are they really that powerful? Grand Elder, that's a little too exaggerated. Let's not talk about whether that world exists or not first. Just over 20 experts who had surpassed Saint Emperor and 3 people even beyond that is shocking enough, yet all of them actually died to Mo Tianyun. We find that extremely difficult to believe. Grand Elder, may I ask where you obtained this information? An uproar broke out after a lull of silence. All the people present, regardless of being from the protector clans or other organizations, spoke their doubts. What Tianjian had said was just a little too out of hand, to the point where no one present believed it. Everyone be quiet please. Tianjian raised his hand to stop all their discussions. Afterward, he pointed to Chen and said, I heard all this information regarding the world of Forsaken Saints from my friend here, Chen. Chen's understanding is much greater than mine. If everyone has any further doubts, you are welcome to ask Chen. What? You heard this information from Chen? Ha 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 ha. Grand Elder, aren't you a little too naive? You'd even believe such an outrageous thing, said a ruddy old man, as he laughed aloud. He did not believe the information at all. Chen glanced at the old man. He recognized him. It was a great elder of the Yuan sect. Yeah, Grand Elder. How can you just believe something so outrageous? It must be fake, no doubt. Otherwise, why would there be no record of something so great within the protector clans at all? Another great elder of a protector clan added. The pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion clasped her hands at Chen and said, my friend here shouldn't be someone who likes to tell lies, but the matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints is just too outrageous. May I ask if you have any evidence for the other world's existence? Or maybe you could lead us to the seal underneath Mercenary City. We wish to hear the truth regarding this. The protector clans were all founded in the ancient times and had survived since then. They were even older than Mo Tianyun, so all of the people from the protector clans felt extremely confident. Any major matter that had occurred in this world would possess records in their archives, while the world of Forsaken Saints, a huge matter itself, was not present at all. This was why they did not believe in its existence. Also, such important news came from Chen, who was a junior, which made it even harder for them to believe. Chapter 10:19, Chen's Desire, Right. Brother Chen, why don't you take us to below Mercenary City? That way, you can show us the seal, and we can confirm whether this is real or not. Otherwise, it really is hard for us to believe your words, said a striking middle-aged man. He did not belong to the Protector clans and was actually an ancestor of an ancient clan. He was extremely powerful and his name was well known, even among the Protector clans. Chen stood calmly beside Jian. Their doubts did not surprise him at all, as it was all in his expectations. Indeed, this news was just too shocking. No news regarding the world of Forsaken Saints had ever appeared on the Tianyuan continent either, so anyone who suddenly heard about it would find it hard to believe as well. If the person who had told Chen the news was not Mo Tianyun, but a child far younger than him, Chen would not have believed it either. He would just treat it all as a joke. Chen calmly glanced past everyone. He did not see any seriousness among them even after they learned about the world of Forsaken Saints. Instead, they were all apathetic. Some of them even smiled sarcastically. None of them cared about the matter. Chen could not help but sigh gently inside. He shook his head, apologies, but I cannot take you underground to inspect the seal. Anyway, I have told you all everything I know about the world of Forsaken Saints. Whether you believe it or not will be up to you. The region below Mercenary City was Shaoling's territory. Without Shaoling's permission, even Saint Emperors would not be able to enter there. Chen knew without even thinking that it would be impossible to get Shaoling to take them all down to the seal. The matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints really are a bunch of lies. Chen, weaving such an outrageous story to trick us, just what are you trying to do? Said a great elder of the Yuan sect with a rather aggressive tone. Chen had some disagreements with the Yuan sect, so he naturally did not respond politely. He stared coldly at the great elder and said, "You will naturally know in the future if the matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints are a bunch of lies from me or not." The meeting broke up very quickly. All the people from the Protector clans returned to their respective clans. The battle with the magical beast Saint Emperor had initially drawn them over, but no one was in the mood to pay attention to it after what had happened to Mercenary City. In the end, Chen's make-believe story regarding the world of Forsaken Saints had affected them in particular, disturbing their thoughts. Although none of them believed the foreign world's existence, they firmly memorized its name. The fact that the foreign world once had over 20 experts that had exceeded Saint Emperor had shocked them in particular. None of them believed Chen's words, but over 20 people that had surpassed Saint Emperor was a huge deterrence force by itself. Chen settled down in a room Jian organized to recuperate, while Jian and the various Saint Kings of Mercenary City all gathered in the floating Divine Hall. Grand Elder, do you really believe what Chen has said? Is there really a huge seal deep underground Mercenary City? If the world of Forsaken Saints really does exist and the tunnel to it has been sealed up underneath Mercenary City, the City Lord should have left behind some information as well, so that people in the future can keep watch. Why would he hide it? All the elders spoke their suspicions. They also struggled to believe the world of Forsaken Saints and the matters around it. Jian paced around the center of the hall with his arms crossed. He tightly furrowed his brows and said in thought, "It really is hard to accept such an important matter to spring up so suddenly. However, if that's not the case, how would the trembling of Mercenary City be explained? And it's not like Chen is a person who lies. He is so close with the barrier spirit as well, so I think the world of Forsaken Saints is more likely to be true than false." The elders immediately became stern after they heard Jian's analysis. One of them said with a deep voice, "If this really is true, then what force will we, the Tianyuan continent, use to repel the invasion? According to Chen's description of the world of Forsaken Saints, we're not their opponent even if the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea race, and the 100 races work together. After all, it's no longer the ancient times. We don't have the 4 supreme champions and the many saint emperors. If the world of Forsaken Saints really does invade, we probably don't have any abilities to resist at all, said another elder. His expression was very ugly. Jian pondered, as he slowly paced around the main entrance of the Divine Hall. He raised his head to look at the void and mumbled, "The war god of the ancient times has reappeared on the Tianyuan continent, while even the winged tiger god is born once again. The sea goddess is still alive, while a genius has appeared on our continent, Chen. Perhaps they have come into existence because of this disaster? That they're only born at the same time in order to repel the world of Forsaken Saints? Only the City Lord knew about the world of Forsaken Saints. The City Lord had also set down a rule with the elders. If the winged tiger god reappears, we must support it when it has not fully matured. He also stated that we should not worry about any harm the winged tiger god would bring to the Tianyuan continent. Has the City Lord foreseen all those years ago that the seal to the world of Forsaken Saints will break when the winged tiger god reappears in the future? If it's really like that, the City Lord's abilities all those years ago probably would have already reached heaven-defying levels, far exceeding our level of understanding. Suddenly, Jian turned to the elders behind him and said, "It doesn't matter if the world of Forsaken Saints is real or not. Do not leak it out, or it'll throw the entire continent into fear." In a cold, quiet room, milky white light dyed the dark room snow white. Chen sat in the center as he used Radiant Saint Force to heal himself. Although Chen sustained very heavy injuries in the battle before, he only used an extremely short amount of time to fully recover under the healing of both his chaotic body and Radiant Saint Force. Chen slowly opened his eyes after making a full recovery. He immediately removed the Octaterra Divine Hall from his space ring. It was currently the size of a fist, but Kaiser had already reduced the majestic Divine Hall had to ruins. It was no longer as mighty as it was before. Jian stared at the ruined Divine Hall with a pained expression. Although he had only obtained it recently, it had helped him greatly. The Divine Hall's existence allowed him to treat the Protector clans as equals. The power of the Divine Hall has not disappeared. It should be repairing itself right now, but it's extremely slow. By this speed, it'll take at least several decades or even over a century to full repair, Jian mumbled as he stared at the Divine Hall, before he placed it back into his space ring. He knew that he would not be able to use it for a very long time in the future. Afterward, Jian pulled out the Saint Artifact. The artifact had endured several attacks from Kaiser. Although Kaiser failed to destroy it, clear marks were left behind. Despite this, the level of damage was insignificant compared to the Divine Hall. The Saint Artifact could also repair itself, so it would return to pristine condition without much time. The Saint Artifact really is much tougher than the Octaterra Divine Hall. If a Saint Emperor wants to destroy it, they'll need to expend quite a lot of effort. On the other hand, Kaiser smashed the Octaterra Divine Hall after just a few attacks. However, the only problem with the Saint Artifact is that its attacks are just too weak. If I come across a Saint Emperor, I won't be able to enter the artifact space at all, or it'll be no different than throwing myself at the jaws of death, murmured Jian. The defense of the Saint Artifact was startling, but it was just an item in the end. It could not flee at all before a Saint Emperor, and if it ended up in the hands of that Saint Emperor, it would be destroyed one day or another. Jian held the Saint Artifact, as he thought deeply. He thought, I've told the 10 Protector clans about the world of Forsaken Saints, but they don't believe it exists at all. They all think that I am lying, and that I'm weaving up a story to trick them. Sigh, looks like making them believe the existence of the world of Forsaken Saints is virtually impossible. Though, it doesn't matter if they don't believe me. An expert greater than Shaoling has already appeared in that world, and there will definitely be people at Receival. There are probably quite a few Saint Emperors as well. They're nothing that this world can repel. Everyone here is too weak. The top priority is to increase the overall strength of this world, but the only way for them to all undergo a noteworthy increase is by refining the Yinyang Saint Rock. It's the Yinyang Saint Rock's existence that's making breakthroughs much harder now. According to what Senior Mo Tianyun said, once it disappears, the laws of the world will return to how they were in the ancient times. The experts currently at the 9th heavenly layer or great perfection of Saint King will only need an extremely short amount of time to reach Saint Emperor, while more Saint Rulers and Saint Kings will appear. It's a pity that the power of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock is just too powerful. I can't absorb it with my current strength. I can probably only absorb it after I reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body with the heavenly enchantress according to the azulate swords. Chen could not help but think of the erotic incident that had occurred between him and the heavenly enchantress when he thought of her. He immediately became strewn with mixed emotions. He still needed to cultivate with the heavenly enchantress in order to absorb the power of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock and refine the Yin-Yang Qi into his own power. The 5th layer of the chaotic body, the 5th layer of the chaotic body. I am currently at the 3rd, so just how fast can I reach the 5th layer? I can absorb the energy of the rock once I reach the 5th layer. Moreover, according to the sword spirits, I can reach the 8th layer after I absorb all of its power, or even the 9th. At that time, I should be able to fight those at returnance or even reciprocity. Chen stood up, and his eyes became filled with desire. Chapter 10:20. The Empyrean demon Orbs takes a master. After he had completely healed himself completely, Chen left the room. Rui Jin and Yu were waiting outside. Chen's heart immediately warmed up when he saw how Rui Jin and Yu still guarded him at all times, even in Mercenary City. He clasped his hands toward the two of them and said, "Senior Rui Jin and Senior Yu, I have kept you waiting. It's no problem. It's not like we had anything better to do here. So we just came to the location where you went into seclusion just in case some accident happens to you like before," chuckled Yu. Rui Jin stared at Chen for a while and said, "Chen, are the matters regarding the world of Forsaken Saints true?" Yu stopped smiling and quickly became stern with Rui Jin's sudden question. Chen nodded, "Correct. It's completely true. The seal to the world of Forsaken Saints really does exist below Mercenary City, and experts from that world attacked the seal. These attacks caused the trembles." Rui Jin became stern. He immediately stopped talking about it and said, "Chen, let's go." Afterward, Chen met up with Tai Ta once more. He spoke with him for a while before leaving the independent space with Rui Jin and Yu together, returning to Mercenary City. Ming Dong was still in a crucial moment of his breakthrough, so it would be inconvenient for Chen to disturb him. When Chen returned to Mercenary City with Rui Jin and Yu, the city had already returned to its previous appearance. The protective power had completely mended the cracks on the ground, as if it was not the crack-ridden city from before at all. The elders of Mercenary City announced a casual reason to explain the trembling of the city. They calmed down the panic and suspicion among the countless mercenaries. Under Rui Jin and Yu's lead, Chen went to find Hong Lian and Houston, who were currently recovering in an inn. They were both in the same inn. "I greet Uncle Xiao and Senior Hong Lian." Chen greeted the two of them politely as soon as he met them. He quickly glanced past them and found that Houston was still injured and had a pale face. On the other hand, Hong Lian seemed fine, except for the exhaustion she struggled to hide. Chen could also sense clearly that Hong Lian's presence was much weaker than before. Although Hong Lian was a phoenix that had lived for several millennia, she only seemed to be in her 20s. Hong Lian immediately began to glare at Chen viciously when she heard how he referred to her. Then, she said with some slight anger, "What, senior? Chen, do I really look that old?" Chen became stunned with that. He had never expected Hong Lian to react so violently from being referred to as senior. Rui Jin smiled at how Hong Lian had reacted and said, "Hong Lian, since when did you become so much like a young girl? It doesn't seem like you." Hong Lian used her hand to play around with her hair. After that, she turned around and sat down on her bed. She stared at Chen in interest and said, "Chen, I've paid quite a heavy price to save you. 4 consecutive rebirths will lead me into 40 years of weakness. Talk, what treasure will you give me to make up for my loss?" Hong Lian did not seem to be joking at all and her words were seriousness. "I will never forget Senior's kindness for saving my life." I will definitely return the favor unfold if I get the chance in the future, said Chen, as he clasped his hands without any extra thought. Rui Jin walked over and patted Chen's shoulder. He smiled gently and said, Chen, Hong Lian's joking with you. Don't treat it so seriously. Hong Lian seemed to have not heard Rui Jin's words at all. She glared at Chen rather unhappily and said, I said to not call me senior. Chen, listen closely. Don't ever call me senior again. Just call me by my name, Hong Lian. Okay. Chen clasped his hands at her. After some thought, he said, Hong Lian, Uncle Xiao, you're still injured. Why don't you enter the artifact space? I can get the artifact spirit to heal all your wounds. Houston's eyes lit up with that. He coughed twice and said rather weakly, that works. With the help from the Saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union, I can recover from these injuries that would normally take several decades in a short while. Then, Chen pulled out the Saint artifact and sent Houston into the artifact space. Afterward, he turned to Hong Lian and said, why don't you enter the artifact space as well to heal, Hong Lian? Hong Lian glanced at Chen, and she closed her eyes to focus on her meditation. She said, my weakness is from backlash of the rebirth of fire. My strength has fallen from great perfection to the 5th heavenly layer, and the Saint artifact can't heal it. I can only recover slowly. Of course, if you have any extremely valuable heavenly spiritual resources, that can reduce my time of weakness as well. Heavenly spirit resources? Does the dragon's saliva count? Chen asked urgently. Hong Lian shook her head gently. Dragon saliva is only a heavenly resource. It's nowhere near the invaluable heavenly spiritual resources. Chen became rather dejected. He knew that Rui Jin had brought over Hong Lian as a powerful helper. If she could fully recover her strength, he would have one more powerful helper at his side. Master, the holy water of the Spirit Sea can help this little phoenix recover her strength. At this moment, the voices of the sword spirits sounded in his head. He had not heard them for quite a while. Chen became delighted. He immediately focused his attention on his sea of consciousness and saw that the two sword spirit revolve around the multicolored stone in the form of two balls of light. In the recent years, the sword spirits had always been absorbing the stone to recover their strength. Chen could clearly feel that the azulate sword spirit were much more powerful than before with a single glance, while the stone had also grown smaller. Ziying, Qingsuo, are you saying that the divine water of the world can help Hong Lian recover from the backlash of using the rebirth of fire? Chen asked. The holy water of the spirit sea that the sword spirits mentioned was the divine water of the world among the sea race. Correct. We understand a few things about the Phoenix clan. They will be weakened for a period of time every time they use their innate ability, the rebirth of flames, resulting in a great decrease in strength. If they use it consecutively, the period of time will be lengthened as well. It's fortunate that the little phoenix isn't powerful. Every time they use rebirth, it'll only result in 10 years of weakness. In our original world, it would be thousands, tens of thousands of years or even longer every time they used a rebirth. In order to shorten the amount of time weakened, a few experts of the Phoenix clan had traveled all over the world in search of a method. In the end, they found that the holy water of the spirit sea was a liquid that could help them, explained Ziying. Chen's attention returned to his body. Although he knew that the divine water of the world could allow Hong Lian to recover immediately, he only had one portion, which was for forging the Azulant swords. He could not give it to Hong Lian. I'll immediately go looking for the water the next time I return to the sea race, thought Chen. Currently, he believed he was strong enough to enter the dangerous areas of the sea realm in search of the water. Chen entered the artifact space once more after he left Hong Lian to rest. He first visited Yu, Xiao Bai, and his mother, comforting their alarmed feelings. Then, he directly proceeded to Uncle Xiao's location. Uncle Xiao made a full recovery very quickly under the healing of the artifact spirit's radiant saint force origin energy. As it was his first time witnessing the origin energy of radiant saint force, he exclaimed and gasped in admiration at the power and wonder of the radiant saint force origin energy. With a flip of his hand, a book appeared in his hand. The Blood Demon Emperor had left behind this cultivation manual in the Octaterra Divine Hall. The baleful Yin force within had stopped attacking Chen long ago with the Empyrean demon orb submission. Chen passed the book to Uncle Xiao and said, "Uncle Xiao, please check out this book." As soon as Chen pulled out the book, Houston began staring at it unblinkingly. He immediately accepted it without any hesitation after he heard Chen's words. Houston immediately produced an interjection of surprise as soon as the book entered his hands. His old and profound gaze also lit up in wonder, and he cried out as he stared fixedly at the book, "Baleful Yin Force." It's actually Baleful Yin Force, and it's several-fold more powerful than the Baleful Yin Force I control. Houston did not stop the Baleful Yin Force and allowed it to worm its way through his body toward his soul. As soon as it came into contact with his soul, not only did it pose no threat to Houston, it was devoured instead, becoming part of his own power. However, the rest of the Baleful Yin Force shot off like a frightened bird as soon as Houston devoured a small part of it, receding out of his body and back into the book as fast as it could. It fell silent, no longer daring to appear again. This Baleful Yin Force actually even possesses a shred of intelligence. What a surprise, what a surprise, Houston could not help but sigh in wonder. He felt even more curious regarding the contents of the book and immediately began to flip through it. However, his expression changed when he saw just the first page. His eyes became flooded with surprise that he struggled to conceal, and the surprise increased as he flipped through more pages. In the end, it turned into deep shock and disbelief. This is the cultivation manual of my Bloodsword Sect. Chen, where did you get this book from? Houston suddenly shut the book and stared at Chen in interest. Afterward, Chen told Houston about the book's origins and everything he had learned from the memories of the Blood Demon Emperor. Houston immediately became stunned when he found out the founder of the Bloodsword Sect was actually a member of the Sea race. His heart began to churn as he struggled to accept or believe all of it. "Uncle Xiao, this is the Empyrean Demon Orb. It should be very useful to you." Then, Chen passed over the Empyrean Demon Orb. Uncle Xiao slowly calmed down as he stared at the orb in Chen's hand. He reached toward it subconsciously. However, as soon as Uncle Xiao touched the orb, the Empyrean Demon Orb immediately flew up from its original state of lying quietly in Chen's hands. It turned into a faint streak of red light as it shot toward Uncle Xiao, before disappearing into the center of his eyebrows. Uncle Xiao's eyes quickly dulled, and he closed them. He had directly fallen unconscious. Chen quickly caught his body, slowly laying him on the ground. He knew that nothing would happen to him, as it was only a process of the Empyrean Demon Orb taking on a master. Chapter 1021, Tracks of the Murderers. Houston silently lay on the floor with his eyes closed. He seemed to be at peace. No one knew just what would happen to him in the process of the Empyrean Demon Orb taking him as a master. The process went for far longer than Chen had anticipated. He stood by Houston's side for 7 whole days and nights, until Houston finally woke up. Chen could immediately sense that Houston's gaze had become much sharper than before, as he slowly opened his eyes. "Uncle Xiao, how is it? Is everything successful?" Chen asked out of concern. Houston rose up from the ground and firmly stood. Unconcealable delight filled his eyes, which also possessed some mixed emotions. Never did I think, never did I possibly think that the cultivation method of my Bloodsword Sect was actually from this Empyrean Demon Orb. Houston produced a long sigh of wonder. Only now do I know that the unique cultivation manual of my Bloodsword Sect is adapted from the Empyrean Demon Arts. Not only is it incomplete, but it's far weaker than the Empyrean Demon Arts. Houston sighed emotionally after he learned the truth. Who had ever thought that the Bloodsword Sect of the 3 great assassination organizations hid such a startling secret? Uncle Xiao, the Empyrean Demon Arts is a cultivation manual that surpassed the Saint tier. If you cultivate it, I believe you'll be able to break through to Saint Emperor successfully without much time. Chen smiled. If Houston could become a Saint Emperor, it would be greatly beneficial for both himself and the Tian Yuan continent. A sliver of emotion appeared in Houston's eyes, but it disappeared very quickly. After some thought, he said, I only have a little more than 100 years of life left. It's not very long, so it'll completely depend on the wonders of the Empyrean demon arts if I can break through to Saint Emperor in that time or not. Jian Chen's heart tightened. He had never thought that Uncle Xiao would have so little life remaining. Although over a century was a very long time, it would only be equal to going into seclusion once for people at Uncle Xiao's level. I hope Uncle Xiao can break through to Saint Emperor as soon as possible using the Empyrean demon arts, Jian Chen prayed secretly. The only pity is that my soul seems to be under some type of restriction from the Empyrean demon orb, such that I can't transcribe the contents of the cultivation manual. Otherwise, I could complete the cultivation manual of the Bloodsword Sect. Houston found this to be unfortunate. At that moment, Houston seemed to think of something. After hesitating slightly, he pulled out a blood-red arrow banner and said to Jian Chen, there are still 2 people alive out of those who murdered your parents. If you want to take revenge, take this arrow banner and go find the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword Sect. They know where the 2 of them are, said Houston, as he passed the arrow banner over. Dense killing intent immediately began to shine in Jian Chen's eyes. He could still remember clearly that there were a total of 5 people who had murdered his parents. He had killed 3 of them with the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword Sect in the City of Gods several years ago, while the 2 more powerful people remained alive. They had fled using a secret technique. Jian Chen originally thought that the 4 protectors had felled the 2 other murderers. He did not expect them to be still alive. Jian Chen slowly extended a hand and accepted the arrow banner from Houston. He clenched it tightly in his hand, as he said icily, I will find the 2 of them with the greatest speed possible and make them pay a heavy price for what they did all those years ago. Houston glanced at the banner arrow in Jian Chen's hand, and he smiled profoundly. However, the expression disappeared very quickly, and he said, Jian Chen, I'll immediately return to Longevity Valley for secluded cultivation as soon as I leave the Saint Artifact. I'll try to break through to Saint Emperor before I pass away. Jian Chen, you've killed quite a lot of people in your journeys in these few years. Moreover, your strength has increased just too quickly as well. Once you deal with all your matters, bring little Fatty with you to Longevity Valley. I hope you can stay there for 10 years. Uncle Xiao, I will definitely listen to you and stay there for 10 years after I deal with my matters at hand, said Jian Chen seriously. He respected Uncle Xiao, and it was not only respect. He knew that Uncle Xiao was thinking for him for all this time. Houston happily nodded. The fact that Jian Chen could remain neither arrogant or rash despite his increased strength satisfied Houston. Jian Chen left the Saint Artifact with Yu, Rum Guinness, Xiao Bai, and Houston. Houston bid farewell to everyone as soon as he left the city and returned to Longevity Valley alone. Jian Chen was impatient to find the other 2 murderers, so he did not stay for much longer in Mercenary City either. He directly moved off after he bid Tian Jian farewell. Big brother, are you leaving again? Just as Jian Chen made his way through the giant barrier around the city, he heard Xiao Ling's voice. She was unwilling to part with him, and she seemed like she was on the verge of tears. Jian Chen looked around but he did not see Xiao Ling. As a result, he spoke to the thin air, Xiao Ling, Big brother still has some important matters to deal with, so big brother cannot stay behind with you. Big brother will come and see you as soon as he has time, okay? Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian did not show any odd expressions this time. Jian Chen seemingly spoke to himself. They looked around with a rather courteous gaze. They knew that the barrier spirit who had surpassed Saint Emperor was currently talking with Jian Chen. Additionally, she had concealed herself in this region of space. They could not find her location no matter what with their current strength. Big brother, Xiaoling feels that the people of the world of Forsaken Saints will break through the seal without much time. Big brother is still too weak. Xiaoling wants to help big brother increase his strength. Xiaoling can invoke the mysteries of the world for big brother to comprehend. Xiaoling's soft voice rang out. Her voice was no longer as energetic as Jian Chen had once heard. Instead, unhappiness, misery, and alarm filled her voice. Chen could imagine how pitiful Xiaoling was right now, even though he could not see her. Right now, Xiaoling was like a fragile little girl that a group of despicable bad people had frightened. Without anyone to rely on like her parents, she was filled with helplessness and fear. Xiaoling, Big Brother really has important things to deal with, so Big Brother can't comprehend the mysteries of the world that you can invoke. However, Big Brother has some friends. Why don't you invoke the mysteries for them to comprehend, so that they can grow stronger faster? Chen said. However, he was internally delighted. With that, he could bring over all the 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers from the Changyang clan of Lore City and get Xiaoling to invoke the mysteries of the world for them to comprehend. As long as it's Big Brother's friends, Xiaoling can invoke it all of them. Big Brother, are your friends them? But they're at the great perfection of Saint King. The mysteries of the world for breaking through to Saint Emperor are just too complicated. It's very hard for Xiaoling to invoke it completely, so Xiaoling might not be able to help them. Xiaoling became slightly dejected as if the fact that she could not help Chen left her very unhappy. No, of course, it's not them, Chen quickly comforted Xiaoling. At the same time, he introduced her to Ming Dong, who was currently trying to break through in Mercenary City. This way, Xiaoling could help him out. After some consideration, Chen also left behind Rum Guinness, so that Xiaoling could invoke the mysteries of the world for Rum Guinness to comprehend. That way, Rum Guinness' strength would increase. As for Xiaobai, he was a winged tiger god, so he did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world like ordinary people thanks to his natural talent. Enough energy was the only requirement, so Chen did not leave behind the white tiger. On the other hand, Tai Ta was the war god of the 100 races. His path of cultivation was different from ordinary people. He did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world. As a result, Xiaoling did not need to invoke the mysteries for him. Chen originally wanted to leave behind Yu as well, but she was just too weak right now. She was nowhere near the level where she needed to comprehend the mysteries of the world, so he could only drop the idea. Xiaoling moved very quickly. As soon as Chen told her the people to invoke the mysteries to, she immediately took Rum Guinness deep underground. Ming Dong, who was currently cultivating in an independent space of Mercenary City, also disappeared. Xiaoling had secretly him taken away. Even Jian failed to notice his absence. Jian carried Yu, as he left Mercenary City with Rui Jin, He Yui, and Hong Lian. They traveled toward the location of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword Sect under the guidance of Arrow Banner from Houston. Once I eliminate the murders of my parents from all those years ago, I'll immediately return to the Changyang clan and bring over my great-grandfathers as well as Jita Tai. That way, Xiaoling can invoke the mysteries of the world for them. I'll visit the Felicity Empire of the 3 great empires after that. By Jian, you've devastated my flame mercenaries, so I will definitely not forgive you, thought Chen, as he soared in the air. These were his plans for the future. The blood-red arrow banner flowed with a faint red light in Chen's hand, as it led the way. Since Chen did not know the precise location of the 4 protectors, he could not get Rui Jin and the others to rip open a space gate and arrive there immediately. Chapter 1022, Luo Duo. The Longxi Kingdom was one of the 8 great kingdoms of the Tian Yuan continent. It stood as an equal to the Qinhuang Kingdom and possessed a history that was several tens of thousands of years long. One could not underestimate its power, while Saint Ruler stayed and protected the Imperial Palace. The Longxi Kingdom was just as peaceful as it was every other day. Its majestic and dominating halls filled the Imperial Palace, a vast and tremendous presence filled the surroundings. Groups of soldiers clad in armor patrolled the palace, as they moved around with their chests up high as they marched at a unison pace. They silently protected the peace of the palace. At this moment, 2 figures that were so blurry that they were almost invisible entered the palace extremely quickly. They silently shot toward the depths. Then, they disappeared into a hall that had been empty for a very long time. They had completely erased their presence, so they alerted no one with their arrival. Even the saint rulers protecting the palace failed to notice the arrival of these two unwelcome guests. Two disheveled old men in tattered clothing carefully leaned against the door, as they observed the activity outside with great caution. They had completely erased their presence and had even held their breaths. They seemed extremely nervous. The two old men finally became relieved after they discovered nothing from their observations. At the same time, they collapsed onto the icy cold ground, as they panted heavily. It's fortunate that we didn't alert the saint rulers in the palace. Situ, your presence erasing technique really is impressive. We should be able to hide here safely for the next few days, an old man said through a communication technique. He was weary. It doesn't matter how profound this presence erasing technique is. The four protectors of the Blood Sword sect will still able to find us. We can't shake them off no matter what, replied the other old man with a similar communication technique. They both behaved extremely cautiously, unwilling to even make the slightest noise just in case it would alert the saint rulers in the palace. The two beggar-like saint rulers were old man Situ and Matting. They had suffered from the pursuit of the four protectors of the Blood Sword sect in the past few years, as they ran for their lives. The Longqi Kingdom is a subsidiary of the Felicity Empire of the Three Great Empires. Probably even the four protectors do not dare to create a disturbance here. We should be very safe here, old man Matting communicated. Old man Situ nodded in agreement and replied, you're right. The four protectors will catch up very quickly. They know we're hiding here. Despite this, as soon as they approach the Imperial Palace, the saint rulers from the palace will definitely stop them. A great battle might even occur. As they fight, we can keep watch and strike out suddenly to defeat a protector together. That way, we can kill one of them. Old man Matting's eyes lit up. That's not a bad idea. The four of them have basically chased us through the entire continent, so it's about time for them to pay a price. 2 days later, four cold-faced, middle-aged men in blood-red robes arrived in the air. They directly traveled toward the Imperial Palace. The four of them radiated with an invisible Baleful force. The temperature would plummet wherever the four of them passed, and it would become as cold as an ice cavern. The two of them are hiding in this city. The previous sect master has contacted us with a secret technique. He instructed that once we find the two of them, we must not act rashly. We need to wait for the new sect master to arrive and wait for his orders. Let's find an inn and rest for now, a protector said expressionlessly, before entering the city with the three others. Who do you think the new sect master is? I can be sure that he definitely has some hatred for the two people we're chasing, but our Bloodsword sect has already stepped away from the continent for 1,000 years. I haven't heard about any elders in the sect that have some resentment toward them, a protector said with a deep voice. He was filled with doubt. Shui-san, shut up. The matter of the sect master is not something we can discuss. A protector's face sank, and he immediately glared toward the speaker. The protector referred to as Shui-san immediately shut up. As the four protectors walked through the streets, their similar appearances and their traces of baleful force immediately became the center of attention. All the pedestrians and mercenaries gave way to them. They could already tell that it would be unwise to provoke the four of them, as they had sinister appearances. The four protectors traveled side by side. They had recovered their usual coldness, which made them seem unapproachable. At this moment, four pepper-haired old men in white robes appeared on the street. They also stood side by side, just happening to block the paths of the four protectors. They seemed like they had waited there for quite some time already. The four old men all seemed extremely ordinary. None of them possessed any presences, and they seemed like ordinary people. They attracted no attention even though they stood on the street in such a fashion. The four protectors immediately stopped, as they were blocked. They stared coldly at the four old men, but none of them said anything. At this moment, one of the old men clasped his hands toward them and said, "We are the four imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom. May I ask why the four experts of the Blood Sword sect has come to our Longqi Kingdom?" said the old man nonchalantly. His tone carried a sliver of coldness and an unwillingness to yield. The Blood Sword Sect had already disappeared from the Tianyuan continent for 1,000 years, but it was still one of the 3 great assassination organizations. There were no experts within the kingdom that could ignore them when the 4 of them arrived at the same time, which was why 4 saint rulers of the Longqi kingdom had immediately arrived to stop them. We are the 4 protectors of the Blood Sword Sect. We have come in pursuit of traitors of the human race, a protector said emotionlessly. This is the imperial city of our Longqi kingdom. There are no so-called traitors. Please leave quickly, said an imperial protector unyieldingly. He did not fear the infamous Blood Sword Sect. The way the Blood Sword Sect does things has never been decided by others. All 4 protectors stood emotionlessly as coldness filled their eyes. Slivers of killing intent had already appeared. The traces of baleful force on them also became denser. They were clearly in a battle-ready state. The 4 imperial protectors were indeed very unwilling to give in, but the 4 protectors were even more so. The 4 imperial protectors immediately thought of giving in when they saw how inflexible the 4 protectors were. They knew that if they did not do that, a battle with the 4 protectors would definitely occur. This is our Longqi kingdom, not your Blood Sword Sect. If you forcefully want it that way, you'll see what happens. The 4 imperial protectors immediately left after throwing down that threatening sentence. The unique baleful force of the Blood Sword Sect was renowned throughout the entire continent. Everyone feared it, so the 4 imperial protectors did not want to fall out with them at all. As he watched the 4 imperial protectors leave, a protector mumbled, "They seem to have very deep hatred for us. In an assassination over 1,000 years ago, the king and 2 imperial protectors died at the hands of our Blood Sword Sect. Of course they would have resentment for us," a protector explained emotionlessly. The 4 imperial protectors gathered together in the imperial palace. All of them were stern. "I never thought that the people of the Blood Sword Sect would appear in our Longqi kingdom once again. Over 1,000 years ago, the Blood Sword Sect claimed the lives of 2 of our imperial protectors. We have to avenge them. Over 300 years ago, Imperial Protector Luo Duo successfully broke through to Saint King. He's currently an Imperial Protector of the Felicity Empire, while one of the Imperial Protectors the Blood Sword Sect killed was Luo Duo's younger brother. We should contact him immediately and get him to assist us." The 4 Imperial Protectors immediately sent someone through a space gate to the Felicity Kingdom to pass on the news of what was happening here to Luo Duo. On the other hand, the 4 protectors of the Blood Sword Sect settled down in an inn within the Longqi kingdom. They stayed in there meditating all day long without taking a single step out. They tried to sense the 2 old men's precise location, as they waited for the new sect master to arrive. A middle-aged man in white robes sat on a huge bed within a beautifully adorned hall in the Felicity Empire. His appearance was ordinary but firm, and he gave off an unwavering feeling. However, he did not have a head full of hair that matched his age. It was completely gray and formed a rather peculiar combination with his face. The man was Luo Duo. He was a Saint King and currently an Imperial Protector of the Felicity Empire. A ruddy old man stood courteously before him. He was an Imperial Protector who had hurried over from the Longqi Kingdom. Currently, he was informing Luo Duo about everything regarding the appearance of the 4 protectors of the Blood Sword Sect. The Blood Sword Sect. Luo Duo slowly opened his eyes. A sharp light immediately began to flicker in his eyes, together with a surging hatred. "Imperial Protector Luo Duo, people of the Blood Sword Sect have come to our Longqi kingdom once again. I wonder what should we do? Please instruct us, Imperial Protector Luo Duo," said the Imperial Protector of the Longqi kingdom. He clasped his hands, as he bowed courteously. "What to do? Of course to kill them, to take revenge for my younger brother," Luo Duo said without any extra thought. But the sect master of the Blood Sword Sect, the Imperial Protector, hesitated. Very deep fear filled his eyes. Luo Duo got off his bed and said coldly, "I've looked through the information regarding the sect master, especially in the Felicity Empire. According to what I know, Houston does not have much more time left, so there's no need to consider him. There is no one else within the Blood Sword Sect that is worthy of the Felicity Empire's attention other than Houston. And if Houston decides to interfere, there will naturally be someone from the Felicity Empire who will block him. Houston brought the glory of the past 1,000 years of the Bloodsword Sect. Once he disappears, the glory of the Bloodsword Sect will become history. Chapter 1023. The Sect Master Arrives. The Imperial Protector from the Longxi Kingdom immediately became overjoyed after they heard Luo Duo's words. He hurried to clasp his hands and said, "Since we don't need to fear the Bloodsword Sect anymore, why stop there, Imperial Protector Luo Duo? We can directly uproot the Bloodsword Sect and take revenge for what happened over 1,000 years ago." A cold light began to flicker in Luo Duo's eyes. He lowered his head in thought and said, "The Sect Master Houston is still not dead, so we can't finish them off. Otherwise, Houston will probably resist with all he has, even if it results in his death. If a Saint King at great perfection throws away his life to take revenge against us, it will be a disaster that can completely destroy our Felicity Kingdom. However, if we just kill the Saint rulers who are in the Longxi Kingdom, it should be alright." Luo Duo's entire presence suddenly changed. His eyes glowed, and he abruptly stared at the Imperial Protector, who stood to one side politely. Then, Luo Duo said seriously, "Immediately return to the Longxi Kingdom and surveil the activities of the experts from the Bloodsword Sect. Just in case, I must see the other Imperial Protectors of the Empire before I move against them." "Yes, sir." The Imperial Protector immediately returned through the space gate in the Imperial Palace of the Felicity Empire, while Luo Duo did not hesitate at all. He immediately proceeded toward the forbidden grounds deep within the palace as dense killing intent flickered in his eyes from time to time. "Brother, it's been over 1,000 years since you died in the hands of the Bloodsword Sect. Brother wasn't able to avenge you then, but now that the opportunity has come, Brother will swear that I will use the Felicity Empire to immediately wipe out the Bloodsword Sect after Houston passes away. I will avenge you." Back then, Luo Duo had the choice of staying at the Longxi Kingdom after he had broken through to Saint King. He could have allowed the kingdom's status to soar. However, he chose to come to the Felicity Empire as an Imperial Protector without any hesitation, with the most important reason being the Bloodsword Sect. He had always wanted to use the Felicity Empire to eliminate the Bloodsword Sect. In the Longxi Kingdom, the Imperial Protector brought back Luo Duo's orders after returning from the Felicity Kingdom. As a result, the 4 Imperial Protectors did not continue to create trouble for the 4 Protectors. Instead, they stayed in the Imperial Palace, as they sensed the Protectors' presences. They observed their activity at all times. However, the 4 of them failed to notice the 2 unwelcomed guests had appeared in the Imperial Palace and were currently hiding silently in a desolate place. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. It was extremely peaceful during this time, and the imperial city of the Longxi Kingdom functioned as normal. People moved about daily in its bustling, noisy streets. It was very lively. At this moment, several wuxias rang out. Several figures rapidly approached the imperial city from afar. They traveled extremely quickly and arrived in the air of the city, despite the fact that they were near the horizon a second earlier. "They're in this city," said an extremely handsome young man in black robes. He seemed to be in his 20s. He held a blood-red arrow banner, while his gaze was as sharp as a drawn sword. He slowly swept past the city with his gaze. They were Chen, Rui Jin, Yu, and Lian. After several days of travel, the 4 of them had basically crossed a large portion of the continent and had arrived here according to the directions of the blood-red arrow banner. Although they all flew, only Chen was not at the great perfection of Saint King. Their comprehension of the mysteries of space was at an extremely great level. They traveled with spatial force. Although it was not as exaggerated as traversing millions of kilometers in a single step with a space gate, they were still unbelievably fast. As a result, Chen used an extremely short amount of time to travel over 10 million kilometers from Mercenary City whilst Rui Jin carried him. As soon as the 4 of them arrived in the air of the city, the 4 protectors opened their eyes at the same time and roused from their meditations. One of them said, "I can sense the presence of the Bloodsword token. The new Sect Master has come. Let's go welcome them quickly." With 4 red blurs, the 4 protectors all flew out of the window. They appeared in the air like phantoms and faced Chen. The 4 of them first gathered their attention on the blood-red banner arrow in Chen's hand, before they slowly looked toward him. They became stunned when they recognized Chen properly, where even their gazes became blank. They were filled with disbelief. None of them had ever thought that the new sect master was not a member of the upper echelon in the sect, but the young Chen. Chen remained as usual. He glanced past the 4 of them before he clasped his hands at them. I am Chen. Thank you, protectors. Chen was still grateful toward the 4 protectors. He would never forget that it was the 4 of them who arrived in time when the Changyang clan faced a disaster. They had prevented the clan from suffering too great of a loss. Otherwise, Old Man Situ and his cronies would have probably flattened the entire clan. The people they harmed would not just be Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. The 4 protectors returned to their senses very quickly. Chen's polite treatment surprised the 4 of them. Without any hesitation, they all dropped to one knee in a single motion and called out, "The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect greets the sect master." What? Sect master? Chen also became stunned with how the 4 of them referred to him, but he came to an understanding very quickly. There was probably a rule in the Bloodsword sect, that the owner of the banner arrow was equivalent to the sect master. As he was currently in possession of it, the 4 protectors naturally took him to be the sect master. Please do not misunderstand, protectors. I am not your sect master. Uncle Xiao has only lent me this banner arrow. He intended to let me use it to find the 4 of you, Chen hurried to explain as he thought. I guess Houston was Uncle Xiao's original name. He was known as the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He probably changed his surname after stepping back from the continent 1,000 years ago. After all, the matter that happened 1,000 years ago has affected Uncle Xiao just too greatly. The 4 protectors did not rise. One of them said with their head down, "The old sect master has already contacted us using a secret technique to inform us that he is stepping down, and that the person in possession of the banner arrow is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. All people must absolutely obey the sect master's decisions and commands." What did you say? Uncle Xiao passed over the position as sect master? This time, the surprised person was Chen. The 4 protectors had described it extremely clearly, so no matter how confused Chen was, he could understand that Uncle Xiao had passed on the position of sect master to him. It was just that the news had come too suddenly, which made it hard for Chen to accept for some time. He had never thought that his status would undergo a huge change the moment he accepted the banner arrow from Uncle Xiao. He did not know that he would unknowingly become the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. The Bloodsword sect was one of the 3 great assassination organizations, which could shake up the Tian Yuan continent. It could not be undermined. Although it could not be compared to the protector clans, it was no weaker than an ancient clan. The 4 protectors had been waiting here under the old sect master's orders for the new sect master, as well as surveilling the 2 traitors carefully. Please command our next actions, the 4 protectors spoke in unison, as if they were mentally connected. Chen thought in silence. The murderers of his parents were here right now, so he was not in the mood to deal with the entangling matter of sect master. As a result, he placed it aside for the time being and said, "Do you know where the 2 traitors are right now? Have you still yet to kill the 2 of them after these years of pursuit?" "Sect master, the 2 of them are hiding in the Imperial palace right now. The old sect master ordered a few years ago for us to chase but not kill, injure but not capture. As a result, the 2 of them are still alive," said a protector. "Is that so?" Chen came to an understanding. Afterward, he looked towards the majestic Imperial palace and said, "Let's go, head to the Imperial palace with me." As he said that, Chen took the lead and flew off first, while Rui Jin and the other 2 followed closely behind him. After them were the 4 protectors, who traveled side by side. Chen's group arrived outside the Imperial palace very quickly. Then, they directly flew into the space above it bravely. They directly stopped above the center of the palace, levitating several hundred meters in the air, as they looked at the many well-adorned palaces. Blood Sword Sect, you've gone overboard to trespass in the skies of the Imperial Palace. Do you really think that my Longxi kingdom is nothing? A furious voice boomed from below. Although it sounded ancient, it was filled with vigor and resounded through the surroundings. It even dispersed the clouds. 4 ruddy old men flew out from the Imperial Palace with that. They shot into the air with lightning speed and tremendous presences, facing Jian Chen's group from 100 meters away. The Imperial Protector's voice broke the peace of the palace, and it all became messy in that instant. A large number of guards surged out from various places of the palace, but when they discovered that the enemies were in the air, they immediately became dumbfounded. All they could do was watch anxiously. Chapter 1024. The new Sect Master's strength. The 4 Imperial Protectors of the Longxi Kingdom faced Jian Chen's group from 1,000 meters away. Their expressions were all ugly. The people of the Blood Sword Sect had already come, yet the Imperial Protector Luo Duo they relied on the most for this matter still had not arrived. This made them feel that the situation was extremely bad. Although 4 of the 8 people are hiding their presences and we can't sense their strength, they're floating in the air without the use of the energy of the world. They must be all Saint Rulers. That's 8 Saint Rulers. The 4 of us aren't their opponent, the 4 Imperial Protectors calculated themselves. They could not act rashly as their opponents outnumbered them. People of the Blood Sword Sect, this is an important part of the Imperial Palace. You are not welcome here, so please leave immediately, an Imperial Protector said nonchalantly. Jian Chen furrowed his brows toward the cold attitude of the Imperial Protector. He glanced past the 4 of them and did not say anything. He immediately enveloped the Imperial Palace with his presence and found the 2 old cronies. They were hiding with their presences and had concealed themselves very quickly. Jian Chen clasped his fist toward the Imperial Protectors and said, "Sirs, I am in pursuit of enemies. The enemy is currently hiding in the Imperial Palace, so please make an exception for me." The enemies you speak of as members of the Blood Sword Sect are probably people that others have placed a rich remuneration on. You all act too arrogantly. Our Longxi Kingdom may not be as great as you all, but we're not something that can be trampled on. Don't you dare kill anyone within the Imperial Palace, said an Imperial Protector in an unyielding tone. They thought Jian Chen had come to kill some important figure within the palace. Jian Chen's face sank slightly when he heard this, and he said, "If the 4 of you insists on stopping us, I can only run the risk of offense." The 4 Imperial Protectors shivered inside. They knew that conflict was unavoidable, so they immediately began to radiate with tremendous presences. At the same time, saint weapons appeared in their hands, and they were now ready for battle. Jian Chen's lips curled into a sneer. Just as he was about to take action, 4 blood-red blurs flashed before him. The 4 protectors of the Blood Sword Sect had arrived before Jian Chen at the same time and blocked the 4 Imperial Protectors of the Longxi Kingdom. A long, blood-red spike had already appeared in each of their hands, while a thick layer of baleful force radiated from them. A battle was about to occur. Ha ha ha, I never thought that after holding up for 1,000 years, the Blood Sword Sect would still possess their previous spirit. Still so arrogant. At this moment, laughter boomed in the sky. Afterward, the space nearby began to distort violently. Someone ripped the space open soon afterward and formed a space gate. A middle-aged man who seemed to be roughly 40 years of age emerged from inside. He possessed an ordinary appearance, except for the fact that his hair was already gray. He instantly arrived before the Imperial Protectors of the Longxi Kingdom and at the same time, a tremendous presence began to radiate from him. It almost caused the surrounding air to freeze. The 4 Imperial Protectors immediately relaxed greatly when they saw the middle-aged man. They became excited. "Imperial Protector Luo Duo, you've finally come. If you have come one step later, the Blood Sword Sect would have probably slain the 4 of us." Luo Duo's face sank with that. Killing intent poured from his eyes without any restraint, as he looked at the 4 protectors and said coldly, "You people of the Blood Sword Sect are getting more and more fearless, coming again and again to my Longxi Kingdom to create trouble. But it's a pity that the current Longxi Kingdom is no longer the Longxi Kingdom of 1,000 years ago. Since you've come today, don't leave. Stay put forever, Luo Duo spoke extremely arrogantly. He had anticipated long ago that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, was reaching the end of his life. Even if he killed a few of the sect's experts, Houston would not run such a huge risk to come and offend the Felicity Empire. If he did so, he would cause the destruction of the Bloodsword sect. The four protectors all became stern. They could already tell from Luo Duo's presence that he was a Saint King and not something they could deal with as fifth heavenly layer Saint rulers. It would be difficult for them to survive even with their baleful force, as the disparity in strength was just too great after all. Chen, who stood beside the four protectors, began to laugh from anger after he heard the arrogant words of Luo Duo. He growled, "To speak so arrogantly, do you think that there's no one present who is stronger than you? Before you speak, why don't you worry about yourself first? Let's see if you have the capacity to speak like that." Luo Duo immediately focused his glare onto Chen, before he quickly scanned past Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian behind Chen. He could not tell their strength, but he felt no fear, as he had the support of the Felicity Empire. "Brat, who are you? Name yourself," Luo Duo growled at Chen. "How dare you? He is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. You cannot be so impolite," a protector of the Bloodsword sect called out before Chen could respond. A sliver of surprise immediately flashed across Luo Duo's eyes when he learned that Chen was actually the sect master. He could not help but observe him closely. He smiled gently and said, "I never thought that you'd be the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. It has really surprised me. May I ask if Senior Houston is well? Who do you think Senior Houston is? Do you think he's someone who you can ask about? However, since you said that you wanted to keep the people of the Bloodsword sect here forever, let's see the great skills that you possess and see if you have that capacity or not," Chen said emotionlessly. Then, he passed the four protectors and arrived at the very front. He stared closely at Luo Duo. Luo Duo's lips curled into a sneer. A strand of killing intent flickered in the depths of his eyes, and he said with his deep voice, "All right. Since the new sect master wants to see, I'll follow your wishes." As he said that, Luo Duo grabbed at the thin air. Invisible world force immediately began to gather in Luo Duo's hand, which he struck toward Chen. Luo Duo did not hold back with the palm strike. As soon as he struck out, it surged forth with an overwhelming might. The terrifying ripples of energy caused the surroundings to tremble violently. Chen remained perfectly composed. He had no need to use his sword against a mere second heavenly layer Saint King like Luo Duo. Chaotic force surged from his chaotic Niden and instantly condensed around his right hand. Then, he struck out directly. Chen's attack was simple, but the force hidden within could not be underestimated. As the punch traveled through the air, the space became littered with tiny cracks. Boom! Chen's fist loudly collided head-on with Luo Duo's invisible palm strike condensed from world force. Powerful ripples of residual energy splayed out and shook up the surroundings, which caused the space within a radius of 1,000 meters to twist wildly. It became a blur. How is this possible? He actually broke through my palms so easily. Luo Duo was internally shocked. The strength of the new sect master had greatly exceeded his expectations. "Luo Duo, it's time that I make you pay for your arrogance earlier," Chen said coldly. He took a step in the empty air and immediately arrived before Luo Duo. He threw another similar punch toward Luo Duo's chest. Luo Duo suddenly became grim. After witnessing Chen's strength, he no longer dared to be so arrogant as before. An extremely powerful saint force surged wildly from within him and condensed into a huge flame-red sword of palm width in his right hand. Afterward, he stabbed toward Chen's fist with lightning speed. Chen's lips curled up into a sneer. His fist did not change in its trajectory and he directly struck the tip of Luo Duo's huge sword. He actually wanted to use his body to resist the attack of a saint weapon from a second heavenly layer Saint King. He's a madman. This sect master must be a madman. Does he really think that he can use his fist to defeat my saint weapon? Humph, if he's so confident, I'll cripple his right arm, Luo Duo sneered inside, and he put some more force into the strike. Bang! Jian Chen's fist collided with Luo Duo's sword and produced a muffled sound. A terrifying force knocked the fist and sword apart, before splaying out in all directions. It shook up the 4 Imperial protectors, and the 4 protectors of the Blood Sword sect who watched in the surroundings were helplessly knocked backward. Luo Duo's fist had not pierced Jian Chen's fist as the former had imagined. Instead, it was unscathed, with no damage at all. Luo Duo's full-powered attack had actually failed to even pierce Jian Chen's skin. Not only did Jian Chen's third layer of the chaotic body elevate his strength to the third heavenly layer of Saint King, but it also elevated his defense to such a level as well. Currently, he could take attacks from third heavenly layer Saint Kings and come out unscathed. Only those beyond that posed a threat to him. Luo Duo could not even harm Jian Chen with his strength of the second heavenly layer unless he used a Saint-tier battle skill. How is this possible? Just how is this possible? How is your fist so hard? Luo Duo stared at Jian Chen's unscathed hand, as he was dumbstruck. Disbelief flooded his face. Jian Chen said nothing and charged up again. He threw another similar punch at Luo Duo as dark chaotic force flickered gently on its surface. An aura filled with destruction flooded the space, which shocked all those present. The punch this time was much more powerful than the 2 before. A gleam of light flickered through Hong Lian's eyes, as she watched from afar. She said with a deep voice, "Just what is this power Jian Chen is using? Why have I never even heard or seen about it? There are no records regarding it in my inherited memories either." Rui Jin and He Yu shook their heads at the same time. Rui Jin stared at Jian Chen unblinkingly and said, "I don't know either, but I can feel that the power he uses is very strong. It feels like it is not completely mature yet, with a lot of space for improvement." Luo Duo's face changed abruptly, as he faced up against Jian Chen's punch. He immediately lifted his sword horizontally to block. Clang! Jian Chen's heavy fist stuck the saint weapon and created an earth-shaking sound. The terrifying energy immediately caused Luo Duo's sword to deform slightly, while a great force was transmitted through it. It shook Luo Duo's right arm until it numbed. Then, that hand became powerless. The huge sword struck his chest heavily from the great collision and shattered several of his ribs. Luo Duo spurted a mouthful of blood, as he was immediately knocked backward. He became pale, no heavily injured, but a pure white piece of jade had already appeared in his hand as he flew backwards. He crushed it without any hesitation. Chapter 1025. Fighting the Imperial Protectors of the Felicity Empire. Luo Duo revealed a relaxed smile after the piece of jade had been shattered. Even though he was heavily injured, he had no need to worry about his life. Before Luo Duo had come to the Longxi Kingdom, he had thought about everything that could happen, so he made plenty of preparations. He found the other Imperial Protectors of the Felicity Empire and got them to help out when he was in a crucial moment. The crushing of the jade earlier was the method to contact them. Although the Longxi Kingdom was very distant from the Felicity Empire, the distance was a piece of cake to a Saint King. They could arrive with any space gate they ripped open. Luo Duo stabilized after flying for several thousand meters. He vomited another mouthful of blood since he could not hold it in. Jian Chen's punch was equivalent to the full-powered strike of a third heavenly layer Saint King. Although he had only withstood a small portion of it, it was still enough to become heavily injured. The Imperial Protectors of the Longxi Kingdom could not help but reveal different expressions when they saw how Luo Duo had been heavily injured by Jian Chen from just a few clashes. They all revealed extremely ugly expressions. Luo Duo was what their kingdom relied on the most. He was the pride of the kingdom, so if even he was not their opponent, the kingdom no longer possessed any more power to contend with the people of the Blood Sword Sect. Jian Chen hovered high up in the air as he stared coldly at Luo Duo. He coldly said as well, "Sir, if you only have that much strength, you might not be able to make the people of the Blood Sword Sect stay behind forever today." Luo Duo was shocked with Chen's strength, but he maintained a sneer. Sect Master of the Bloodsword Sect, you are indeed very powerful. I am nowhere near your enemy, but the interesting parts will occur near the end. The space before Luo Duo began to twist violently as soon as he finished speaking, quickly forming a space gate. Immediately, two presences even more powerful than Luo Duo began to radiate from within. They surged out like two angered dragons, twisting and turning recklessly in the surroundings. They flooded the entire region. Before the two powerful presences, the air stopped moving and so did the energy of the world. Even the invisible world force calmed down. Two white-robed, ruddy old men emerged from the space gate. Their eyes glowed like torches as they sharply glanced over Chen before stopping on Luo Duo. Their expressions changed at the same time when they saw the horrible shape that Luo Duo was in. They took a step and silently appeared before him. One of them asked with a deep voice, Luo Duo, are you fine? Who injured you like this? Imperial Protector Fang Yan, Imperial Protector Ta Ji, the one who injured me is the new Sect Master of the Bloodsword Sect. I am not his opponent, so please redeem my honor for me, Imperial Protectors. Luo Duo's voice was extremely hoarse. Fang Yan patted Luo Duo's shoulder and said, we're all one family, so why be so polite? Don't worry, I'll help you. He then looked at Chen's group and said, may I ask who the new Sect Master of the Bloodsword Sect is? Although that was what he had said, his gaze focused on Chen. He had already determined that Luo Duo was injured by Chen with where he was standing. Chen's expression remained the same. He clasped his hands indifferently and said, I am the new Sect Master of the Bloodsword Sect. Is there any areas you have a problem with and you'd like to criticize? Chen could already tell that the two Saint Kings that had come to support Luo Duo were of the 5th and 6th heavenly layer. They did not pose a threat to him. Fang Yan's expression sank slightly. He said, I am not worthy of giving criticism, but not only has the sect leader trespassed in the territory of the Felicity Empire, you've even injured an imperial protector of our empire. If you don't give us an explanation for this matter, do we, the Felicity Empire, still have any dignity? Chen's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that they were actually from the Felicity Kingdom. He said, you're actually from the Felicity Kingdom, perfect. Is Bai Jian a part of your empire? He is indeed. Our empire just happens to have this person. May I ask about your relationship with him? Fang Yan stared fixedly at Chen. He's an enemy, someone who must be killed. Chen growled. As he spoke, a powerful killing intent radiated from his body. The two Imperial protectors changed in expression when they heard what Chen had said. Ta Ji took a step and advanced until he was only 100 meters away with an extremely sharp presence. He growled, Sect Master of the Bloodsword Sect, looks like you're purposefully trying to become enemies with our Felicity Empire. If that's the case, allow me, Ta Ji, to witness your strength and to see if you're on Houston's level or not, to speak in such an arrogant fashion. Ta Ji extended a finger and the energy of the world and the surroundings immediately became abnormally energetic after it had just calmed down with their arrival. It gathered at the tip of his finger with unbelievable speed, condensing into an extremely powerful attack that shot towards Chen. Ta Ji's strength was at the 6th heavenly layer of Saint King. He was stronger than Fang Yan. Chen could no longer deal with such a powerful attack as easily as he had dealt with Luo Duo. He immediately removed his Emperor armament from his space ring, directly stabbing out with lightning speed. A gray light shot from the tip of Chen's Emperor armament. It ripped the surrounding space with an aura of destruction as it shot towards Ta Ji with great speed. The gray sword chi advanced with no hindrance, traveling through Ta Ji's finger attack of world force before continuing on towards Ta Ji with no reduction in force. Ta Ji's complexion changed. He had never thought that the new sect master would be so powerful. He immediately became much more cautious. At the same time, extremely powerful saint force surged wildly out of his body, quickly condensing into a long sword that was 3 fingers wide in his right hand. Afterwards, he chopped out with lightning speed, shooting out a powerful and sharp sword chi which collided with Chen's attack. Boom! A great sound rocked the area as the two sword chis collided. The powerful residual energy caused the surrounding space to tremble non-stop. Taji's sword chi disappeared mid-air, dispersing in the form of basic energy. The sword chi condensed from chaotic force remained fine, continuing towards Taji and arriving before him in the blink of an eye. Taji's expression abruptly changed. It was already too late for him to dodge, so all he could do was hold his sword horizontal before him. A great boom exploded as soon as the chaotic force sword chi collided with Taji's saint weapon. Taji was knocked back uncontrollably. He flew for over 10 kilometers before stabilizing himself. He was in shock, completely shocked by the strength of the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Even with his strength as a saint king at the 6th heavenly layer, he struggled against a single sword chi from him, which filled him with disbelief. The new sect master was just too strong. Imperial protector Taji's actually been knocked back by a single sword chi from the new sect master. This is impossible. Have I seen wrong? Imperial protector Taji is a 6th heavenly layer saint king. Luo Duo stared at Taji in disbelief as his eyes bulged. His heart began to churn. Emperor armament. It's actually an emperor armament. Fang Yan cried out. He stared unblinkingly at the weapon in Chen's hand as deep envy and shock leaked through his eyes. Taji wielded his sword with his right hand and fused with the surrounding space. He arrived beside Fang Yan over 10 kilometers away with a single step and stared at Chen's emperor armament in interest. Only after a while did he sigh in surprise. It really is an emperor armament. The power of emperor armaments really are just too powerful. The reason the sect master can knock me back with a single attack is all because of the emperor armament. If you didn't have it, you definitely would not be my opponent. Fang Yan's eyes grew cold and he said, Taji, since we're not the sect master's opponents on our own, let's work together. We cannot let the prestige of the Felicity Empire fall here no matter what. Sure. Taji agreed without any extra thought. A surging presence began to radiate from him as he charged at Chen with Fang Yan at the same time. Chen's gaze grew cold as well. He said, I've held back with the previous attack, but since you have no idea what you should and shouldn't do, it's no longer my fault. Chen's presence suddenly changed as soon as he finished speaking. In that moment, he seemed to have become a peerless divine sword. Extremely sharp sword chi radiated from him all over and his arm holding the emperor armament suddenly shook. He chopped out mercilessly, producing a sword chi that ripped through space as it shot at Fang Yan. The strike was equivalent to the full-powered attack from a saint king of the 7th heavenly layer. Wherever it passed, space would rip, and from afar, it seemed like a streak of black light shooting through the sky. After that, Chen charged up with his sword. He continued towards the more powerful Taji as his emperor armament glowed with a blinding dark light. He stabbed out 3 times with a devastating aura. The 3 strikes were extremely fast. Each and every one of them left behind a blur, and it seemed like he had struck out 3 times all at the same time. Fang Yan was only a saint king at the 5th heavenly layer, so how could he resist a sword chi from Chen who was equal to a 7th heavenly layer saint king? He was heavily injured by the attack. The sword chi passed through his chest, leaving behind a clear hole. Taji became extremely stern-faced as he dealt with the 3 strikes from Chen. He used everything he had as a 6th heavenly layer saint king, pouring everything into resisting Chen's 3 attacks. However, due to their difference in strength, Taji only managed to block 2 of the attacks. The 3rd strike pierced his heart, causing his entire body to be impaled by the sword. Bam! Chen kicked Taji's chest along the way and knocked him far away as he vomited blood. In the blink of an eye, all the supporting imperial protectors of the Felicity Kingdom had been heavily injured by Chen. No, impossible. Luo Duo and the 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom all paled when they saw what had happened. Fear began to quickly rise in their hearts. Chapter 1026. The Great Divination Technique. Ta Ji and Fang Yan hovered in the air with pale faces. Residual blood remained on the corner of their lips while their snow-white robes had been dyed red with blood. They seemed to be extremely miserable. Chen did not kill Ta Ji and Fang Yan. The Tian Yuan continent would be facing a disaster in the near future. Ta Ji and Fang Yan were 5th and 6th heavenly layer Saint Kings, so they would be a part of the major force that would repel the invasion from the world of Forsaken Saints. The two of you are nowhere near my opponent. Go. You are not to interfere with any matters of the Bloodsword Sect today. Otherwise, you will be taking the Bloodsword Sect on as an enemy, Chen said as he put the Emperor armament away. Ta Ji and Fang Yan looked at each other. They were both troubled, and they glanced at Luo Duo, who was also heavily injured. They produced a soft sigh and said nothing else, directly ripping open a space gate and leaving through it. The both of them knew that Chen possessed the ability to kill them from the battle before, but he showed mercy in the end. This was why they did not throw down any threats before leaving. Ta Ji and Fang Yan left together, returning to the Felicity Empire. Luo Duo lost his greatest insurance with their departure, so his face also became bleak. However, a gleam of light flickered through his eyes very quickly, and without any hesitation, he ripped open the surrounding space to create a space gate. However, before it had completely formed, Chen suddenly appeared beside him and he punched at the gate. He caused space to shake violently, forcefully preventing the space gate's formation. You have extremely strong killing intent for the Bloodsword Sect. If I let you go today, you will definitely cause great harm to the Bloodsword Sect once you become powerful, so you better stay behind today. Chen's presence surged as he coldly stared at Luo Duo. Afterwards, he punched Luo Duo's chest, causing it to cave in completely. His ribs and organs turned to mush. Mouthfuls of blood spurted from Luo Duo. He endured his injuries and icily stared at Chen. He called out, "I am an Imperial protector of the Felicity Empire. If you kill me, the Felicity Empire will definitely flatten your Bloodsword Sect. Houston will be passing away soon. He cannot protect the Bloodsword Sect." Chen's face immediately sank with that. Killing intent surged in his eyes as he growled, "You're looking to die for disrespecting Uncle Xiu." Chen radiated with a terrifying killing intent as he pursued Luo Duo. A faint layer of chaotic force covered the surface of his fist as he struck Luo Duo's head. Luo Duo's head exploded with Chen's angry punch. His soul was wiped out before it could even flee. Luo Duo had never thought that he had sped up his own death instead of saving his life with what he had just said even as he died. Imperial Protector Luo Duo. The 4 Imperial Protectors of the Longqi Kingdom all witnessed Luo Duo's death. They all stared wide-eyed, torn between grief. Chen glanced at the Imperial Protectors torn between sadness and anger. Perhaps due to the fact that his increase in strength affected his mind, he did not bother to deal with the 4 saint rulers of the Longqi Kingdom. That was, of course, given that there was no irresolvable disagreements between them. Chen did not look at the saint rulers again as flew towards the Imperial Palace. He had already locked onto Old Man Situ's and Moting's presence. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword Sect did not bother with the Imperial protectors when they saw how Chen did not try make things difficult for them. One of them removed Luo Duo's space ring from his finger, before following Chen toward a desolate area within the Imperial Palace. Currently, Old Man Situ and Matting leaned against the door in fear, peeping through a tiny slit to see the situation outside. They gently trembled as their lips jittered. They were filled with deep fear. The 2 of them had witnessed the battle in the sky as they hid. They were naturally familiar with Chen's appearance since they had chased him down in the City of God before. They had just witnessed Chen heavily injure 2 Saint Kings consecutively, as well as kill one without any difficulties. They were deeply astounded by his strength, struggling to accept it all as true. Situ, do you think that he's actually Chen? Old Man Matting said through a communication technique. His teeth loudly chattered, producing an audible sound. We're done this time. How did Chen's strength suddenly become so great? I clearly remember that he was not as strong as the two of us when we first met him in the City of God. Old man Sidhu's face had completely drained of blood. In that moment, deep fear had replaced all his other emotions. Suddenly, old man Mating's expression changed. He cried out, "Shit, they're heading in our direction. How did I forget? The experts of the Bloodsword sect have methods to find us. Run." The two old men no longer bothered to conceal their presences. They shot through the roof, fleeing into the distance with their greatest speed. Chen's killing intent immediately began to explode through his attempts to suppress it when he saw the murderers of his parents. His killing intent began to permeate the surroundings, causing the temperature to plummet. He yelled out, "Do you really think you can flee before me?" Chen's voice was extremely loud and clear. It suddenly shook the sky like a clap of thunder. It was deafening. Old man Sidhu and Mating froze. They immediately began to tremble from Chen's voice and unconsciously stopped. They were filled with fear. Before Saint Kings, they could not even flee with their current strength. Chen ran over from afar with a dark face. A tremendous presence had already locked onto the two old men, making them feel like a mountain currently sat on them. They even struggled to breath. Suddenly, the two old men fell to their knees at the same time. They constantly bowed to Chen as they begged, "Senior Chen, please let us go. This matter really has nothing to do with us. It was all secretly organized by the Tiger King of the Gilligan clan. If we didn't listen to him, he would have killed us. Senior Chen, the prime culprit is not us but the Tiger King. We're just a chess piece in the Tiger King's hands." "Yeah, Senior Chen. We're just a chess piece in the Tiger King's hands. We didn't have a choice either. It's useless even if you kill us, so please forgive us as the bigger person. If you want revenge, go find the Tiger King. He's your true enemy." Old man Mating copied old man Sidhu by loudly pleading. He acted like he was wronged. He sounded as pitiful as he needed to be. Chen coldly stared at the two old men. His killing intent increased instead of reducing, and he slowly drew the Emperor armament from his space ring. Chen could not let the two murderers of his parents all those years ago die so easily. The two old men became even more frightened when Chen drew his Emperor armament. With a flurry of hands, they pulled thing after thing out of their space rings. "Senior Chen, if you let us go, we will give you everything in our possession. These Class 7 monster cores, these vast quantities of purple coins, and this wondrous great divination technique will all belong to you." Yeah. Senior Chen, the great divination technique is an ancient, divine book. The two of us obtained it by risking our lives in an extremely dangerous place. The value of this book far exceeds the lives of us two old men. We will use it to exchange for our lives. Senior Chen won't be losing anything in this deal. The two old men both held part of a booklet in their hands. They raised their respective parts high above their heads in a courteous manner. The two booklets seemed to belong together but had been separated. "Nothing you say will work. I must kill you today," Chen emphasized each syllable as he spoke. His tone was icy cold, and as soon as he finished speaking, he immediately stabbed out. His arm shook, and the Emperor armament turned into a wall of blurs that enveloped the two old men. He stabbed out countless times in a short instance. Each stroke moved at an unbelievable speed. The blurs stacked upon each other, filling up the space in a dense fashion. It was impossible to tell whether a blur was actually the sword or just a fake. Arg! The two old men miserably shrieked. Blood and flesh scattered into the space filled with the blurs, turning the air into a bloody mist which drifted through the sky. The air around them was dyed red. The two old men constantly shrieked, growing more and more miserable as the pain became more and more agonizing. It was chilling. A while later, Chen finally stopped. Other than their heads, the two old men had reduced to red skeletons from the neck below. They had been carved alive with no flesh left. Even their organs had completely disappeared. The saint weapons within their dantians had been destroyed by Chen. Currently, the two of them floated in the air completely dependent on Chen's ability to freeze space, or they would have fallen. Chen, if you want to kill, then kill. Why torture us like this? Old man Situ angrily roared with his hoarse voice. He could not endure the torture. It was not something humans could endure. It won't be that easy if you want me to kill you in a single stroke. I will repay the debt of blood with interest from all those years ago. I will carve you into pieces and tear you into shreds. Chen gnashed his teeth. Afterwards, his emperor armament began to move once more, slowly carving away their bones. Chen tortured the two old men for 4 whole hours. When only their heads were left, he wiped out their souls, allowing them to disperse permanently. Chen slowly put the emperor armament away and raised his head to look at the blue sky. After that, he deeply exhaled. Only now were all the murderers of his parents dead. He had finally completed this journey of revenge for his parents. Chapter 1027, A Book of a Way. Although the two old men had died in such a cruel fashion, it was far from enough to make up for the pain they had brought to Chen when they killed his parents. Chen knew that if the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect had not arrived in time, perhaps the entire clan would have been wiped out. The strong eat the weak. This was the law of survival in this world, with nothing to be discussed or debated. Strength was the greatest decider of authority. Rui Jin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian stood silently behind Chen with the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. Their expressions remained the same. The bloodshed they had once experienced was nowhere near anything Chen could imagine. They had seen everything, so the scene before them could be described as just too common to them. A long while later, Chen slightly calmed down. He lowered his head to look at the ground before quickly descending to the ground. The great divination technique lay quietly on the ground since it had fallen from the hands of the two old men. Its old, yellowed pages gently flipped in the breeze, revealing a large face of tiny characters. With a gesture, the parts of the book were immediately affected by an invisible force as they slowly flew into Chen's hands. Chen examined the 2 booklets and discovered that they were several pages made out of an unknown material bound together by golden thread. The pages were extremely pliable yet extremely difficult to destroy. They possessed marks left behind by time, so no one knew just how long they had existed. The 2 booklets really did form one book, but it had been separated by the 2 old men by untying the golden thread. They each carried an incomplete portion of it, and only when they were put together did they form the complete book. Just what is this book to be described in such a great fashion by 2 saint rulers? Chen mumbled before putting the 2 booklets together. He flipped to the first page and began reading. Chen's eyes gradually lit up as he flipped through the pages. His calm heart also began to beat heavily. He became slightly excited before involuntarily sighing in shock in the end. This really is a divine book. It's so wondrous. The great divination technique was not some powerful battle skill or cultivation manual, but an extremely wondrous book. The reason why it was so wondrous was because it could forecast the future and penetrate the supreme laws of the world, allowing the user to see the end. It could also help the user find the person the user was looking for, or the answer the user wanted to know. It's too wondrous. It's just too wondrous. I never thought that there would be such a wonderful book in the world. This is unbelievable, Chen praised. He was very surprised. The great divination technique was basically heaven-defying. As soon as someone mastered the technique, nothing could trap them since they knew everything. They could pierce through the multiple obstructions and illusions to see the truth. No scheme would work against someone who mastered it. They would even be able to see through a person's past and future incarnations. The great divination technique was recorded in words at the front, and towards the end, it became a mixture of simple-looking yet complicated lines and pictures. Chen's soul suddenly shook when he saw the lines and pictures, and a weird feeling filled his head at that moment. The lines and images seemed to fuse with the surroundings, combining with nature. They seemed simple, yet they hid an infinite number of mysteries. They were profound. The great divination technique is mystical, but it's extremely difficult to learn. To forecast the future would need an extremely deep comprehension of it, Chen thought. He could already understand how profound it was from the text at the beginning. A book of a way. It's actually a book of a way. Suddenly, the sword spirits' voices rang out in Chen's head. Their voices were filled with amazement, as if something extremely unexpected had happened. A book of a way? Ziying, Qing Sua, what's a book of a way? Chen immediately communicated with the sword spirits due to his curiosity. Master, a book of a way is a book that describes a way. It is referred to differently in different places, and it's called the laws of the world here, Qing Sua explained. Does that mean that the lines and images recorded near the end of the book are laws? Chen was rather surprised. Correct, Master. There are many ways out there. Different people can record different ways with different methods, such as the book in your hand. The authors completely recorded a way using lines and images. It seems simple, but it's extremely difficult to comprehend. However, the book is a recording of the rarely seen way of divination. In the world we originally came from, there were extremely few people who comprehended the way of divination. Even describing it as rare as a phoenix's feather would be too much because the way of divination is just too hard to comprehend, and it's not offensive in nature, so very few people take that route. The people who do take that route are extremely weak in battle. Even if they comprehend it to the utmost peak, they can't defeat people at a cultivation level lower than them. It's a route nowhere near the beaten path, Ziying explained. Chen's excitement immediately disappeared with that. He sank into his thoughts. All the joy he had from obtaining the technique completely disappeared. Ziying, Qing Sua, are you saying that I shouldn't comprehend the details of the great divination technique? Chen asked after some thought. Master, the great divination technique is indeed useless to other people since comprehending the way of divination in a world filled with battle would just be seeking death. Once people start fighting, anyone who comprehended this way would definitely be at a disadvantage. They will die very easily to their opponents. However, Master does not walk a path of cultivation similar to ordinary people, so Master still needs to comprehend the way of divination, said Ziying. I need to comprehend it? Why? Chen asked in confusion. Master, the 18 layers of the chaotic body are only a way for Ziying and me to get you to have a deeper understanding of how the chaotic body is divided. Actually, the chaotic body is divided into 4 major levels in our original world: minor achievement, partial achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. The first 6 layers are part of the minor achievement, the 7th layer to the 12th layer is part of the partial achievement, the 13th layer to the 18th layer is part of the major achievement. Great perfection is for those who have surpassed the 18 layers, and it is the highest level of the chaotic body. However, no one has reached it before. Does that mean that my chaotic body is only halfway through the minor achievement, and that I'm still quite far from the peak of minor achievement? Chen thought. Master, the minor achievement of the chaotic body only requires energy to cultivate, but once you reach partial achievement, you need to comprehend ways, or laws of the world, to continue your increase in strength. As for great perfection of the chaotic body, it requires the comprehension of 3,000 great ways. Only by making the 3,000 great ways a source can someone reach great perfection and refine true chaotic force. As a result, Master needs to comprehend the way of divination, Ziying explained. Chen finally felt a little better. He mumbled inside, looks like I can't benefit from the great divination technique that I just obtained at all right now. The great perfection of the chaotic body is just too far away from me right now, so I'll consider it in the future. Great perfection was a level that surpassed the 18 layers. With Chen's current level at the 3rd layer, he dared not to hold wild wishes for it. After communicating with the sword spirit, Chen placed the great divination technique into his space ring. Although the fact that the technique contained the method to know everything in the world and it did tempt him, Chen also knew that reaching a high level of comprehension of the technique would be extremely difficult. It would take up an extremely great amount of time, yet he had not even dealt with the matters at hand, so right now was not the time to comprehend. Chapter 1028. The ancestral Emperor Jian calmed down and removed the space rings from the two old men before rejoining Rui Jin and the others in the air. He said, "Senior Rui Jin, I want to go to the Felicity Empire next. Please create a space gate for me." Rui Jin did not turn down Chen's request and instead agreed to it without any hesitation. "I just happen to have looked into the territories of the three great empires, so I know their precise locations." With that, Rui Jin extended a finger and swung it casually. The space ripped open, quickly forming a space gate. Chen stared unblinkingly at Rui Jin's ordinary and simple action. His eyes shined with interest as he seemed to be deep in thought. He already knew that he would not be able to undergo breakthroughs as easily as before once he reached partial achievement, and that every layer would require the comprehension of the laws of the world. As a result, he paid close attention to how Rui Jin ripped open space. Not only does Senior Rui Jin's action of ripping open space contain his comprehension of the laws of space, it also possesses the control of power. Space is a law while energy also has its own way. Looks like I've already begun to interact with the laws when I was a saint ruler, except that it was just a smattering of it, Chen mumbled inside. Once I deal with the matters on hand, I'll immediately go to Mercenary City and get Shaoling to invoke the mysteries of the world for me to comprehend. I'll work hard on increasing my strength. Chen and the others, including the four protectors, immediately stepped through the space gate and disappeared from the air above the Longqi kingdom as soon as it had formed. Yu had already been sent into the artifact space when Chen fought with the Saint Kings before. The Felicity Empire was one of the three great empires of the continent. It possessed a lengthy history and had two of the 7 capital cities of the continent, the City of the Heavenly Spirits and Thunder City. The City of the Heavenly Spirits was the imperial capital of the empire, where the Imperial Palace was located. As the imperial capital of the Felicity Empire, the prosperity of the City of Heavenly Spirits was naturally self-evident. Countless organizations consisting of large and small clans filled every space within the city walls. Experts gathered and were as common as clouds. However, there was one exception. There was a huge mixture of people within the city walls of the imperial capital, but it was governed very well, so there were extremely few cases of violence. Chen's group appeared in the air above the city after passing through the spatial gate. They looked down at the land below them and with a rough scan, they found where the Imperial Palace was. They immediately flew in that direction. Currently, the pale-faced Fang Yan and Ta Ji, who had just come back from the Longqi kingdom, sat on cushions as they meditated in a majestic hall within the palace. Before them sat a middle-aged man in a set of luxurious, gilded robes. His face was dark as he angrily glared at Fang Yan and Ta Ji. The man was extremely handsome, and the presence of a ruler radiated from him. He was filled with prestige. He was an imperial protector of the Felicity Empire as well, and he was stronger than Fang Yan and Ta Ji. He was at the peak of the 7th heavenly layer as well as an emperor who had abdicated several years ago. He was a member of the imperial family. The Bloodsword Sect is just too arrogant for injuring the imperial protectors of my Felicity Empire. How dare they? And I can feel that imperial protector Luo Duo's presence has disappeared. He must have suffered a mishap. The Bloodsword Sect is going too far. Do they really think that they can trample all over the dignity of the empire just because they have Houston supporting them? The middle-aged man growled unhappily. The Felicity Empire was one of the 3 great empires of the continent, and even among ancient clans, there were not many that could rival them. As a result, they treated their dignity with more importance than anything else. The Bloodsword Sect had heavily injured 2 of their imperial protectors regardless of the consequences and even killed one. It was not something that the Felicity Empire could bear with. Saint Kings were the central force of the empire, so Luo Duo's death was an extremely heavy loss. Even with the entire empire in perspective, they could count the number of Saint Kings with their fingers, so Saint Kings were not something they could obtain just because they wanted to. The middle-aged man immediately rose up from his cushion as icy cold light flickered in his eyes. He growled, Houston actually dares to offend my Felicity Empire like this right before he's about to pass away. Looks like he's trying to do something big before he dies. If that's the case, we'll strike first and wipe out his sect. Dealing with the Bloodsword sect with the strength of our empire is naturally not a problem, but how do we deal with Houston? And other than Houston, there's a new sect leader. He's extremely powerful when he wields an emperor armament and definitely has the capacity to fight you, Taji said with a deep voice. I'll keep the new sect master busy. We can get the Ancestral Emperor to deal with Houston. Although the Ancestral Emperor is slightly weaker than Houston, Czar Kaiyun of the Czar clan and Hao Wu from the Holy Empire still owe me a favor. I'll go to the Holy Empire this instance to find them, so they can assist the Ancestral Emperor. I think the three of them should be more enough to deal with Houston, the middle-aged man said. However, his eyes suddenly froze when he finished speaking, and he quickly raised his head. Very quickly, Taji and Fang Yen sensed it as well. They looked into the distance, and their expressions immediately became ugly. It's the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He's actually come to our Felicity Empire. With that, a sharp light flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes and he snorted, perfect. New sect master, I'd like to see what you want to do today. With that, the middle-aged man strode towards the outside. You cannot go. At this moment, an old voice boomed in the hall. It was filled with an absolute prestige that could not be denied. The middle-aged man came to a stop and turned around. He saw that a sage-like old man had appeared on the highest throne within the hall at some point. The man's expression slightly changed, becoming filled with respect. He bowed to the old man with Taji and Fang Yen. I greet the Ancestral Emperor. The old man was the Ancestral Emperor of the Felicity Empire. He was already over 5,000 years of age and was the oldest member of the Imperial family. The Ancestral Emperor within the royal family of the Empire did not refer to the founding emperor, but the oldest and most powerful past emperor. There would always be one, just one. You all stay here and go nowhere. Do not interfere with the matter outside, the Ancestral Emperor nonchalantly commanded. However, he was looking outside. His profound gaze seemed to be able to look through the various structures and obstructions to see Chen's group. Chen and the others flew toward the Imperial Palace of the Empire, landing on a roof of a hall. Who has come? Why do you not come through the main entrance? Do you not know the rules of the Empire? The four protectors of the Bloodsword sect radiated with baleful force, so it was extremely hard for them to conceal themselves. As soon as Chen's group landed, a loud call rang from the palace. Several saint rulers began to radiate with tremendous presences as they threateningly flew to where Chen and the others were, encircling them. At the same time, all the guards of the palaces moved, surging out in all directions like a tide. They formed a sea of people very soon, surrounding the area where Chen and the others stood. A saint ruler glanced past the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect and growled, "Are you from the Bloodsword sect?" The four protectors said nothing, as if they had not heard the question at all. Chen scanned the saint rulers coldly with an expressionless face and icily asked, "Where is Bai Jian? Come up quickly for your death." Although Chen spoke very softly, it resounded throughout the entire Imperial Palace. Immediately, another 20-odd saint ruler presences began to radiate from various places of the palace. They all quickly approached Chen's group, joining the encirclement. All of them seemed to carry ill intentions. Without a doubt, what Chen had said had expressed the fact that he had come to the Imperial Palace of the Felicity Empire to make trouble. They were enemies. Who are you to come make trouble for the Imperial Palace? Do you think that you have lived too long so you want to die earlier? Brat, you're the first one to come make trouble at the Imperial Palace in recent years. If you're sensible, tie yourself up and go plead for forgiveness from the Emperor. He might spare your life. The saint rulers around Chen all called out. Although they knew that Chen's group was not easy to be trifled with, they were in the Imperial Palace of the Empire. It was their territory, and they had quite a few Imperial protectors inside. Chen's face slightly sank. I have no intentions of becoming your enemies. I have only come with intention of killing Jian. Will you be handing him over or not? How dare you look down on the dignity of the empire? It doesn't matter who you are. You have committed unforgivable crimes. Let's capture these troublemakers and pass them to the emperor for judgment, a saint ruler called out. He was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler and seemed to be extremely prestigious among the group of people. The other saint rulers all began moving after he spoke. Stop. At this moment, an old voice boomed from the depths of the Imperial palace, though the owner of the voice was not present. It was filled with absolute prestige and could not be denied. The saint rulers that had gathered around Chen immediately stopped. They gave a deep, polite bow to the depths of the palace. They did not know who exactly the speaker was, but they were certain that it was at least an imperial protector. Brother, my Felicity Empire has no ill will with you. May I ask why have you come to make trouble? The old voice rang out once again. It was the Ancestral Emperor. A prince of your empire, Jian, gathered several millions of mercenaries from many mercenary groups to take my city. Say, is this ill will? Chen replied with a deep voice. He felt no fear at all. So brother has come for that matter. From today on, Jian will no longer be a member of the Felicity Empire. His life or death will have nothing to do with the empire. I hope we can clean the slate between us like that. How do you feel about that? The Ancestral Emperor's tone was extremely amiable and without any hostility, as if he was trying to negotiate. Chapter 1029. Another visit to the city of God. All the saint rulers around Chen became stupefied when they heard what the Ancestral Emperor had said. At that moment, they struggled to believe what they had heard, actually doubting whether their ears had a problem or not. The Felicity Empire was a powerful empire that had existed on the continent for countless years. It was extremely powerful. Its dignity was almost holy and could not be impinged upon. Anyone who dared to enter the empire in an attempt to cause trouble would be dealt with mercilessly, teaching that person a severe lesson. They had never been so flexible before, which was why everyone refused to believe what they heard. The current emperor appeared outside a beautiful palace in dragon robes and a golden violet crown. He stared at Chen's group as a large group of experts protected him. Your Majesty, just what is with the Imperial protector today? Why is he negotiating with a troublemaker and even dismissing Prince Jian of his position? He's an extremely talented saint ruler. Not only has he comprehended a saint-tier battle skill many saint kings have failed to grasp, he will definitely become a saint king in the future as well. Are we really supposed to just abandon such a genius? A valiant golden-armored, middle-aged man asked in confusion beside the emperor. The way the empire was treating its enemy today did not seem like what it would usually do. The emperor stared into the depths of the palace as respect filled his face. He mumbled, "It's the voice of the Ancestral Emperor. The Ancestral Emperor must have his reasons for doing this." What? It's the Ancestral Emperor. The armored man's face changed and immediately became courteous as well. Even the experts around the emperor reacted in similar fashions. Respect filled their faces and even a sliver of excitement appeared for some. The Ancestral Emperor possessed a supreme status within the Felicity Emperor. Although he had abdicated several years ago, every single sentence from him was equivalent to an imperial edict. Not only could he make any decision for the entire empire, he could even dismiss the current emperor or any official in the government. However, the Ancestral Emperor always stayed in the forbidden grounds near the back of the palace in cultivation, almost never interfering with anything. He would rarely appear even over the span of several hundred years, and there were rarely any people who had the right to personally visit him. All the people only heard of the story of his existence, which was why so many people became so shocked when they learned that the old voice from the depths of the palace belonged to the Ancestral Emperor. Chen smiled with what the Ancestral Emperor had said. He clasped his hands to the depths and loudly said, "Senior truly is a decisive person. Since Jian is no longer a member of the Felicity Empire, I naturally will have no problems with the empire. However, please hand over Jian to me." Brother, Bai Jian is not in the Imperial Palace right now. If you want to find him, you might as well go to the Holy Empire. You can find him there, said the Ancestral Emperor. The Holy Empire, Chen mumbled. He had not thought that Bai Jian had actually run off to the Holy Emperor, but he immediately followed up with, the Holy Empire is so big, finding someone would be almost impossible. May I ask, Senior, of the precise location? The Tsar family in the City of God, replied the Ancestral Emperor. A gleam of light immediately flashed across Chen's eyes when he heard that. He thought back to the moment when he had faced enemies from everywhere due to the Tsar family, which caused his face to slightly sink. Senior, I thank you for telling me. Farewell. Chen clasped his fists at the depths of the palace before leaving with Rui Jin and the others. Brother, our Felicity Empire wishes to be eternal friends with you. If brother has some time in the future, you are welcome to come visit the Empire, the Ancestral Emperor's voice rang out once more. The voice traveled very far, landing clearly in Chen's ears. Chen's group traveled far from the Imperial Palace before leaving through a space gate Rui Jin created. They directly made their way to the Holy Empire. A middle-aged man looked at the seated Ancestral Emperor in confusion within a beautiful hall after Chen had left. He asked, Ancestral Emperor, why must we speak in such a humble manner to them? Do we really fear the mere Bloodsword Sect with our strength? As long as we work with Tsar Kaiyun and Hao Wu, wiping out the Bloodsword Sect would be easy. The Ancestral Emperor gently sighed with that. It's indeed possible to wipe out the Bloodsword Sect with the Felicity Empire's strength, but I never thought that it would be him who had become the Sect Master. It really is a surprise. The Ancestral Emperor suddenly became stern and stared fixedly at the three people before him. He said, remember, the three of you, never have any conflicts with the Bloodsword Sect in the future. If you come across anyone from there, you must treat them politely and you must not offend them. Do you understand? Ancestral Emperor, just who is the new Sect Master to make someone as great as you be so cautious? The middle-aged man was curious. He's someone we can't offend. In all of recent history, he's the only one who dared to provoke the 10 Protector clans while the Protector clans could not do anything to him. At the same time, he's a person who dares to swagger recklessly throughout the entire continent after offending the only human Saint Emperor and 2 Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent. With that, the Ancestral Emperor stared deeply at the three of them. I think you should know who he is. The 3 Saint Kings in the hall became completely stunned with that. They all paled. Only now did they finally know who the person they had offended was. They had never seen Chen, but his name was like a thunderclap to them. Virtually no expert of the continent did not know the name Chen. However, only a very few number of people had seen his appearance. In the City of God, Bai Jian wore luxurious robes with gold linings as he conversed at ease with the Grand Elder of the Tsar family in a hall. He was smiling and possessed quite a striking demeanor. However, no one knew that he was extremely nervous despite his composed exterior. He had learned that Chen had returned mightily several days ago and had taken back Flame City with lightning speed and claimed his father's life. He became filled with deep fear because of this. He knew Chen would come looking for him, and he would not be forgiven. Before, he had visited the Ancestral Emperor of the Felicity Emperor to request for him to deal with Chen. However, he was turned down, which was why he had come to the Tsar family in the Holy Empire. He wanted to find experts to deal with Chen. Grand Elder, I've already stayed here for several days. May I ask if the esteemed Senior Tsar Kaiyun is willing to meet with Junior? Junior has important matters to inform Senior of. Bai Jian could no longer bear with it anymore, asking the Grand Elder again. The Grand Elder was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler. He was stronger than Bai Jian and belonged to the Tsar family of the 3 great clans, but Bai Jian was the most talented prince, acknowledged by the public, of the 9 princes in the Felicity Empire. He also knew a saint-tier battle skill, so he treated Bai Jian extremely politely and courteously. Please do not worry, Prince Bai Jian. I have already passed on your request to the Ancestor. If Ancestor wishes to see you, she will naturally send out the word, so please wait a few more days, smiled the Grand Elder. Bai Jian's expression took an ugly turn. He had already waited here for several days, and if it were to continue like this, he would not be able to see the ancestor even after several months. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Bai Jian's head. He clasped his hands. Grand Elder, please pass this message on to Senior Czar Kaiyun. Bai Jian is close with the Heavenly Enchantress and has learned of some matters of the past from her. This includes the intense love that Senior Hao Wu and Czar Kaiyun once had. Junior has come this time to offer up a plan that can eliminate the estrangement between the two seniors and get the two back on good terms. The Grand Elder's eyes froze when he heard that, and he immediately became stern. He stared fixedly at Bai Jian. Prince Bai Jian, is that true? If you trick the ancestor, the consequences will be extremely severe. It is completely true. Bai Jian swore. Bring him to me. The cold voice of a female rang through the hall as soon as Bai Jian finished speaking. However, it was impossible to discern its origin. The Grand Elders hurriedly put down the teacup in his hand and stood up. He politely said, "Yes, ancestor." A hall that glimmered with violent light existed in a huge cavern below the estate of the Tsar family. Bai Jian entered the deep underground through a tunnel under the Grand Elder's lead. He directly entered a palace and stopped before a tightly closed room of seclusion. "Ancestor, I have brought Bai Jian under your orders," the Grand Elder courteously informed her. "Bai Jian stays. You can go." A cold woman's voice rang from the room. It was completely emotionless. "Yes, ancestor." The Grand Elder politely replied before immediately leaving. Bai Jian greets the esteemed Senior Czar Kaiyun. Bai Jian became polite as he stood outside the room, bowing deeply. "Bai Jian, you say you have a method to mend my relationship with Hao Wu?" "Yes." Bai Jian indeed has a method to mend the relationship. "Senior Czar Kaiyun is welcome to try it," Bai Jian cautiously answered. He was at his wit's end. "Speak. What is the method?" Czar Kaiyun's voice rang out of the room again. This time, a sliver of urgency was present. Just as Bai Jian wanted to speak, a tremendous presence suddenly appeared outside. It enveloped the entire city of God, such that even Bai Jian, who was underground, could clearly feel it. On the surface, a space gate silently opened in the air. Jian Chen and the others emerged from it, levitating high up in the sky. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.